Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Hopeless Stream. We're embarking on a bit of a hybrid game tonight because this is actually a game that's based off the Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective game.
Yes.
Which was a game that came out in 1981.
Yes.
In a wonderful brown plastic folder. I don't have the folder here, but I have it somewhere else. It was like one of these old folders, you know, with iron rings inside.
Nice.
And then you clamp them together and you had all the paper stuck in there.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I think it won Spiel des Jahres in Germany in 1981. Or perhaps it was a little later. I can't really remember.
So around the 81, you say?
It came out in 81, and it was a really big success when it came out. But for some reason, I think they were not able to produce enough cases, or the quality of the cases they produced went down, or they just ran out of fuel or steam or whatever. And it kind of collapsed. I think around the mid-80s, there wasn't much left. They did some extra cases. They also did that franchise spin-off called Gumshoe, which is like a more of a sort of pulpish 1930s Sam Spade kind of environment, where you're playing this huge big campaign over several sessions, which is actually really cool, except that the story gets lost at some point and the whole game breaks down. But
perhaps a future hopeless game.
Yeah, I mean, this is an existing hopeless game, Gumshoe. Yeah, I recommend if you are able to grab a copy, you should get a crappy copy of Gumshoe, and yeah, you can have a lot of fun with Gumshoe. It's just, yeah, it becomes kind of strange towards the end. No, but so there was this whole franchise of these games, and they basically died out in the 80s, and
the detective genre of games.
Not the detective genre of games at all, really. I mean, there were other games, but this pinnacle of detective games, which I really think Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective was and is.
I agree. One of the best games ever.
It is. I mean, within the genre of detective games, it's hard for me to think of something that's better than Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. And even on a scale of, you cannot, of course, compare all kinds of games, but it delivers a really solid experience. It's a great game. It's
well written.
Very well written. It's written really in the voice of the old Sherlock Holmes stories. And you can tell that it's also from a time when people could actually write, right? I mean, because we can't
today.
We can't write anymore.
It's a lost art.
Yeah, but we can't, right? No. We don't read, we don't write, we can't do these things. We have like weird chat tools and spell correction things, and we're always copying styles, and we can't really write. But they could back then, and the quality of the writing. And these people were not writers; they were game designers. They were probably also role players. They loved stories, but they were really, really good. The quality was really, really high. And even though it was such a fresh breath of air in the gaming world, it just lasted those few years up through the 80s. And I think by the end of the 80s, no one remembered Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective anymore. And for the longest time, it was completely under the radar. And I remember picking up a copy, I don't know, in 2010 or something of the old game, and no one had heard about it, and I had to pay like big dollar to get it on the secondhand market. Got this weird brown plastic ring folder and just spent countless nights playing this game, which was awesome. I was like, how come nobody knows about this game?
Yeah.
And then within the next few years, it was picked up by a French publisher that started reissuing the old game with updated graphics and in a box. And it was basically just, they took the old cases and I think they translated them into French first and then translated them back into English, or there was something weird going on there.
Yes, because I happen to have one of the newer versions of the game, like the reissue version, and that's actually a copy that's been translated from French into English. And some of the cases, they suffer a little bit from that.
Right.
So you do have to go online and print out a few fixes to some of the cases. Right. But it's not a huge problem. It's still a great game.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the time, I think people overfixate on tiny errata problem. Of course, it's annoying if there is a wrong reference and N4 should have been M4 or whatever. But, most of the time we'll manage. but so the game was really only rediscovered, I would say, about 10 years ago. And since then, it's become a huge success. You can buy it basically everywhere. There are tons of expansion. They did the whole Jack the Ripper series of cases, so you can play like the authentic Jack the Ripper cases.
Wow.
It's almost like edgy in the world of board gaming, I would say, to sort of relive the horrors of true murders.
Sure. True crime in game form.
Yeah, very much. So it's alive and well again, and I think
thank God, revived from the gloomy streets of London. It's been unearthed.
We've scraped it up from between the cobblestones of murky London.
Exactly.
And I think it was just about the time that it was starting to re-enter, or maybe a little before, I'm not sure, that this game started to come about, what you're looking at here. Because this is Mythos Tales. But Mythos Tales was not Mythos Tales in the beginnings. It was actually Arkham Investigator. And it was a print and play game made by Hal Eckles. And he did 2 cases and he put all his material online.
Cool.
And yeah, cool. And so it was free. I remember downloading the file and printing them out. And then the game was picked up by a game company called 8th Summit, and they published a boxed edition. And in my humble opinion, they basically made the components worse, or they made the components better, I guess, but they made the graphic art worse, which is also why, if you're looking at the screen here thinking, why are we not playing with the Mythos Tales map? It's actually because we prefer the Arkham Investigator map. So this is the old print and play map.
We are very selective people, and aesthetics is super important. And so, of course, we could not let the new artwork pass.
No,
it didn't pass the hopeless screen test.
No, we put it in front of the camera, and the camera just turned off.
Yes, unfortunately. Could be, of course, a number of reasons why that would happen, but we contributed to the game. We blame the game, of course. So
that is why that we're playing with this map. And the thing about the Mythos Tales edition that came after the print and play is also that it has 8 cases in it, but the first 2 cases are basically the same cases that have already come out in print and play. There may be minor changes, and since we're eclectic in many ways on this stream, we're actually kind of playing both editions at the same time. So I will not recommend that anyone try this experiment at home or try to copy what we're actually going to be doing tonight.
This is for advanced Arkham investigators.
Yeah, this is kind of a split brain kind of thing we're going to do. So we'll, for example, use both the newspapers from the old edition and the new edition. You can see this is the print and play newspaper right here, page 1. Very, very nice standard Sherlock Holmes Consultant Detective format. And it also has a page 2 with even more wonderful personal ads and weird men's shirt sales, and the new Buick is the new style, all these wonderful old things. I really like this. Then what you're sitting with there is this
is the new version that they made.
Published edition.
And first of all, it's glossy, which I don't remember reading any newspaper with glossy print.
No, me neither.
On glossy paper, and it doesn't feel like a newspaper at all.
It's also only 1 page. I mean, there is writing on the back page, but that's for another date, so that's for another game.
Okay.
But
I mean, it does the job. But it's just not as cool as the original.
And I really like the ad though at the bottom for the soap.
Black Magic Soap.
No,
is that the one?
The one on the
La Parle Obesity Soap.
An obesity soap.
When it can be reduced easily, conveniently, and best of all, safely by the use of La Parle Obesity Soap, this obesity soap, used like an ordinary soap, positively reduces fat, without dieting or gymnastics. Oh, thank God. Absolutely harmless, never fails to reduce flesh. Reduces flesh. I don't know. I don't know about this one. When directions are followed, send for Book of Testimonials. Box of cakes sent prepaid on receipt. That's amazing. Okay, that's a good one.
That is a good one. I mean, I love the idea of an obesity soap where you just wash your fat off.
I love that. And if I can eat cake at the same time.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. So, minor details like that. And that also means that we'll sometimes be reading from the print and play entries, and sometimes we'll be reading from the published edition entries, depending on whether we care to look at one book or the other. I mean, since we're showing everything up front, I might as well also show you the cover here for the Arkham Investigator print and play version, which I think is really nice and atmospheric, very well done. This is just something I printed out on paper myself. And versus, again, the Mythos Tales book, which is here, which is more like a standard sort of expected game book, which some more generic feel, more generic graphics to it. And it got all the cases in one book, which also makes it like it's a tome that you're sitting with, and you're only using 10, 15 pages at a time per case.
And so passing it back and forth between players, trying to look up clues, it becomes a little bit fiddly.
Yeah, it does. So, I mean, I don't know. I imagine that some people will prefer the more streamlined second edition with the more, it feels more like real game components. But I'm also a sucker for print and play stuff.
When was the original version from? When was it put online?
Arkham Investigator, I believe is it 2013 or 2015?
Because this cover just reminds me of like something of Out of the Blair Witch Project or something.
Ah, yeah, okay. It harks back to an earlier age.
Yeah, this is super cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, also today I was also just looking online and to see if I could find some nice, atmospheric Cthulhu artworks to put on, our waiting screen slideshow. And I just think that it's strange that it feels like Cthulhu really had a resurgence, or the whole Lovecraftian mythos thing had a resurgence when it started to become games and things like that. And the artworks that is produced for it mostly is this, not to diminish it in any way. I'm just saying that this sort of Photoshop digital art world where it's all a little bit caked together, and and it's always the same motif with some sort of Cthulhu monster standing in the ocean, and the small man looking out upon it.
Yeah,
it's very generic, and it's very much it's the same, and it's not. I would just say if you do a Google search on Cthulhu or Cthulhu art, you're gonna be depressed at the lack of imagination that's out there. I'm sorry to say it, guys.
I mean, I think it's okay for us to be grumpy old men today, and I love that we are starting basically with a takedown of the whole genre of the game that we're about to play. So if we had any viewers, I'm sure they've left by now. But
negativity is rife.
Yeah, negativity is positivity, or I'm sure you can spin this some way. But no, I totally agree, and I think it's fair. I think it should be said all the time, this just mindless reproduction of this Lovecraftian universe, which is just like weird tentacled monsters and people going insane, and a complete lack of horror, a complete lack of the cosmic dimension of the horror. It's just so pedestrian. It's just some kind of slimy blob that crawls out of the gutter and puts his tentacle around your foot and tries to pull you over. There's really nothing in it.
I think real, actual octopies.
Yes, octopies.
I think that's what they get. That's what you get when you order the obesity soap, get an octopus pie. The real octopus is far more mysterious and far more scary, I think, than those depictions of the Cthulhu monster.
I mean, yes. I mean, at least the moment that they could become completely detached from the lore behind it, from the whole idea of some kind of weird, strange shadow against the wall that you see passing by, and for the rest of your life, you're going to be scared out of your minds at night when you try to go to sleep, just thinking of what might that shadow, who might have cast that shadow, and the answer is never given.
Yeah.
I mean,
don't show the monster.
Yeah, don't show it. I mean, it's just how it developed, and I think with this, possibility of doing all this digital photoshopped art, things just became worse. It became too easy, right?
Yeah.
I brought along a few things for you. I found the 1989 edition here of Call of Cthulhu, the role-playing game.
That's awesome. I love the font there.
Yeah, it's a really nice font, and it's just like this big yellow eye staring out at you from a mass of tentacles.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can also see this is 89. It was already the 4th edition of the game, and yeah, just full of text and black and white drawings.
Try moving a little bit to that side.
Yeah, I'm just trying not to burn it.
Don't burn it either.
Because it would be a nice sacrifice, but it would also...
This is amazing because this is just atmosphere and a setting. And, the setting of this, like the 1950s, 40s, some New England town somewhere, and it's noir vibes, it's dark, it's gloomy, it's mysterious. That's plenty. That's more than enough for my imagination to go crazy.
Absolutely.
It doesn't take a lot, though. I would have to. But and Stegen says, cool Lovecraft take. Actually, Cthulhu is just an actual normal-sized octopus.
Yeah, I mean
that would be fucking scary.
Normal sized is debatable because in the 1989 edition here of the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game, there is actually also a scale fold-out, so you can see how big the creatures actually are.
Okay, let's see.
So I don't know if you can hold it like this.
If I hold the book, yeah.
And I again try not to burn it. You can kind of. Perhaps I'll just move the candle because it'll give us some more room.
So here we go, guys. Never before seen actual real size of the Cthulhu monster.
Can you get the Cthulhu monster on screen? This is the Cthulhu. I mean, and you can see little bits and spots here. Those are people. I don't know. I hope. Yeah, you can see down there. Like there's the little guy.
That's a man.
That's a man. And if you can see, I don't know if we can get that into frame. Down to the left, bottom left, in front of the feet of the big Cthulhu monster, you can also see just a little human shape there, so you can see the scale of it. So yeah, it's a pretty big octopus, and that's of course also like a super corny, weird thing to put
I love that.
to put in the book, but there's something about it that's just also a little bit endearing.
It's cute.
Yeah.
It reminds me of those diagrams where you see the different Star Wars ships. And then you see, well, the X-Wing is only this big, but the Star Destroyer or whatever they're called, or the US Enterprise or whatever.
I was probably pretty sold on it when I was 12 years old. There's also something here which is very much a Hopeless Games thing. It's basically a word list of sanity-inducing words.
Wow, this is a great reference, actually.
Yeah.
Lumpy is apparently
sanity-inducing.
Do a sanity check every time you encounter Lumpy. Cellular? That has become more true, actually.
Yeah.
With time.
Other horrible words?
Diabolical, of course. Detestable. This is a great, this is the reference for death metal bands, I would say.
Yeah. Just take two of those words and stick them together and you have a band name.
Animated, dripping, jumbled. Well, there's no sort of plastic, poisonous, vomiting, slimy. Well, there's not there, and then you would have the disease, for instance, or
I see immense, immoral, incongruous, jaded, jaundiced,
zodiacal, semotic, words I haven't even encountered before.
Yeah, there you go. You learned something from those old games back in the day.
Definitely. This is amazing. I think this word list deserves is worth the book alone.
Yeah. And there's also a great list of occult books and how much sanity you lose from reading them, which is always a great thing to have.
I wonder how much sanity this book detracts from, just rifling through it now.
Well, if you
I'm feeling I'm losing sanity points as we speak.
If you look at the back of it and see the little photo of the designer Sandy Peterson, you can see that this is obviously a guy who lost a lot of sanity.
This is a guy This is the guy we're talking about here. Look at the photo, just completely faded. I could probably find some words to describe that photo in this book. Askew, ornery, bankrupt.
Bankrupt. That's probably true.
That's probably true. Let's be honest. I don't think you get rich from writing in 1980s Cthulhu scenarios.
No, probably not. So, but you know,
Tatsevich says it reminds me of the Shakespeare insult generator.
Oh yeah.
If you have a link to the Shakespeare insult generator, please post it here.
Yeah, please share it. So you know, this is some of the places where this game grew. So that's why I said this is a kind of a hybrid game, because it has that whole Sherlock Holmes consulting detective thing going on, the whole structure of the game, and then that's coupled with this Lovecraftian Cthulhu theme.
You lumpish hedge-born horn beast. Great. Great.
I don't know what the proper response to that insult is.
No, I don't know.
But yeah, fiddling here. So that is also why, actually, because now we're in this detective genre, and I think that the game that we're playing tonight is basically just, you know, the latest shoot on the branch, a reskinning of Sherlock Holmes Consultant Detective. But even Sherlock Holmes Consultant Detective, I mean, regardless of how unique it probably felt in 1981 when it came out, was also building on things that had existed before. So if you, for example, look at the book that we got lying there, the file on Rufus Ray, that's all from a series of books from the mostly 30s and maybe also 40s, but I think mostly 30s, which are also game books, really. Those are case books where this game it's just a whole book full of interview transcriptions and clues. There are little plastic pockets with evidence, pieces of evidence in them inside.
Hey,
like here, there's something.
I don't want to know what that is. Is that a finger?
I think it's a cigar.
Thank God.
And you can see up there, and it's since this is 100 years old, this book now.
It's 100 years old?
Yeah, it's about 100 years old. Up there in that little plastic thing, there used to be ash from the cigar.
Wow.
But that has gone away. There's still some confetti found on a body left in the top left one.
Wow, this is how you do a newspaper.
Exactly. It should take a proper 2 hours to read it, and it should be like so small print that you really need your magnifying glass.
This is amazing.
And a book like that is you sit down and you read the whole book, and then at the end comes the questions.
Okay.
So it's kind of structured like a narrative, but it's also just a lot of case information. And the interesting thing, the way it's set up, is that when you start reading it, you may, it first casts suspicion on one character, and then it casts suspicion on another character, and it constantly complicates the picture. So when you get at the end, unless you have like a very sharp mind, you're going to be completely, confused as to what the solution is. And those books were really hard back then. I mean, they were really hard.
But yeah, I guess also just solving crime back then was hard.
Yeah.
Because you might not even have fingerprints.
Maybe not.
Was it the dawn of fingerprinting, I guess?
Yeah,
I don't actually know, but somewhere.
I think they were a little bit early, but I mean, you didn't have like a huge big fingerprint database to compare with anyway, and you didn't have DNA, and there was a lot of stuff you didn't have that would complicate matters.
Okay, that's super cool. So when are we playing File on Rufus Ray?
Well, that's probably like a 20-hour stream where we just read.
That could work.
I mean, these books are really great for just sitting in an armchair with a cigar and a drink for a couple of days.
Yeah, just checking it out and slowly taking mental notes and perusing, pondering.
Probably the best of those game book authors from the 30s was a guy called Dennis Wheatley, and he also did some board games on the side. And then he also wrote occult horror novels. So
and when was this roughly?
The game books are from the 30s. I think he also wrote all the way up in the 40s, 50s. He wrote a famous book called The Devil Rides Out, which was also made into a
Devil
movie.
Rides Out, what a cool title.
I think there's a 60s movie adaptation of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all this just to say that Sherlock Holmes Consultant Detective came out actually of a long tradition of interactive detective fiction. And there are more obscure examples like weird Japanese interactive detective fiction.
Wow.
And so there's a whole thing.
That is interesting as well.
So there's so much to draw on.
What about this one here?
Well, this one here is it's a card game basically, and it's actually just a standard card game, but it's from the 30s, and it was made by members of a certain crime club, a club run by Peter Cheney, who also I think wrote detective short stories.
Okay, so like a Freemasons for crime sleuths.
Yeah, and as you can see here, it has several suits. It has police suits, and it has burglar suits or criminal suits.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that each of these suits, the cards have a certain hierarchy to them. Like you would normally have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or you will have like a jack and a queen and then a king and an ace. But here, instead, you have a story that is drawn on the cards. So in order to find out the value of the cards, you have to find out at which point in the story the card is. So the earlier in the story, the lower the value of the card. And later in the story, the higher the value of the card. So you have to basically take all these cards and put them together in the correct sequence, which is a little puzzle in itself.
I remember we played this, you and me, a long time ago.
Yes.
And
it was in the 30s, I think.
I think it was
when it came out.
When it just came out. No spoilers were found anywhere. And I remember it was something, I don't want to spoil this because I know everyone is going to go out and go to the local...
Yeah. I'm just going to do like this so you can freeze your screen at some later point and find out what is the real sequence of cards.
The way I remember it, that a car was found, had gone off the road, and when you went down a trail where some clues led you, you found a cottage, and so you would sort of have to put images to those events.
Exactly, and each suit tells a story. It's very nice.
Very cool.
Very cool little thing. And then of course it's just a card game. It's basically it's a very simple card game, like any other card game. But the cards are really nice, and the whole idea of making these suits are really nice.
Another morally bankrupt.
This is Peter Cheney, the designer of or I'm not sure he even designed it, but in his name the game was designed anyway.
And he looks
pretty good. That looks like us tonight, doesn't it? Don't you think shouldn't we be Peter Cheney tonight?
We're Peter Cheney.
I think we're Peter Cheney tonight. That's great.
I would like to mention that this box comes with a little cushion here, so you can rest your weary mind on the table when
you can stick needles into it when you're doing your little needlework.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know why, but there's a cushion. I think there's not enough board games with cushions on the cover. And that's a shame.
No, I mean it's nice that you can sort of fall on your game and not hurting yourself.
Yes, exactly. We have it in your back pocket. It's still okay to sit down. Tasridja says, sounds like that Decagon house murders thing about a murder club. That book also ended with questions to answer, if I recall correctly.
Yes, so that is what I was referring to before in this Japanese interactive fiction, where there's a whole genre, also from very early on. That's not like a dosher like this one with different cases. It's really a story that you read, and then you're challenged to come up with a solution. And I know the Decagon book, and it's impossibly difficult. It's like Sudoku level something.
Well, first of all, it's in Japanese.
Yeah, like there are 10 people in 10 different rooms, and who was where at what time, and who could possibly have taken the bread out of the kitchen, and because he was a sleepwalker, but only on Sundays, and it's really tricky.
Who was a sleepwalker only on Sundays? Oh my God. Yeah, okay. So it requires deep understanding of the human condition.
Yeah.
What was a pretty ridiculous book, honestly. Yes, sounds a little bit ridiculous. So we have a lot of lore attached to sort of even build up to where we arrive today, which is the Arkham Investigators, which I think is a better title for the game, to be honest.
Than Mythos Tales.
Yes, because now it's called Mythos Tales, but let's be honest, that's pretty vague. And I think Arkham Investigators, it's straight to the point. It's mysterious. It's cool. It sets the scene.
Yeah, I agree. And I can then, comfort you that both the companies who've been publishing this game in the past, they are now out of business. So the game is unobtainable, except for on the second market. And the print and play files have been pulled down after the game was published. So it's really difficult to get a hold of this thing. I think
it was judged by the world and found not adequate.
I think that probably the first edition of the game, the first box edition, which is the one that has the most mistakes in it, I think even more than the print and play version, that can still be found relatively easily on the second-hand market. But there is a lot of errata to the game, which we might as well front here. There might also be errata to the case that we're playing that we're not aware of. But we'll find a way.
We'll manage. I'm sure we can solve it anyway because we're
not a deal breaker here.
Two PIs.
We are Peter Janey embarking on a case.
Yeah. What could go wrong?
So you have played Sherlock Holmes Consultant Detective, right?
Yes, and I enjoyed every moment of it. I think I solved the first 2 or 3 cases. It was not easy.
No.
But it all was logical, more or less. And if with a little bit of luck and a little bit of ingenuity, you could actually solve most of the crime and most of the events leading up to the crime.
I think the most beautiful thing about the way that at least the early cases in Sherlock Holmes Consultant Detective was constructed was that you could, you move around this map and you pick up clues, and you can pick up as many clues as you want, but you're never gonna find a clue that gives you the solution.
No.
So you can know so much, but only so much, and then at one point you have to make a leap of faith. That is the Sherlock Holmesy move, where you say, but what if the colonel was actually not a colonel, and he actually was called Henry and not Robert? What if he had a twin brother? Where you just make that assumption out of nowhere, which is then the solution to the case. And the game, I think over time, and probably also if you're a heavy detective fiction reader, you're probably also better prepped for these kind of games.
Sure, definitely.
But then now you have these facts, and you can get more facts, but they may only model the picture. You still need at some point to make the leap of faith. And I love that about those cases.
You never found this. You never find the smoking gun.
Exactly.
You find smoke. You may find a gun, but if it's
disconnected.
It's disconnected. Is it the same gun or
disembodied smoke? Yeah.
Disembodied smoke.
Disengunned smoke.
Yes, and I think that's actually a really great way to do detective puzzles.
Absolutely.
To keep that little bridge of Indiana Jones. Invisible bridge that you have to cross.
Because I think that my probably expectation going into the first Sherlock Holmes game that I played many years ago was probably like, if I go to the right place or the right places, then I'll be able to solve the puzzle. Yeah. And then it'll be obvious what the answer is. But then, after playing for a whole night and saying, okay, this is a lot of locations, I don't know what more there is to discover, and I still have no clue who killed the man in the alley down by the docks.
Yeah.
And then...
Was he even killed?
What could it be? Is it possible to jump between those 2 balconies because the alley is so small?
Sticking to looks, what a reference. I don't know. A reference to Sherlock Holmes or what?
Or to Decagon, perhaps.
To Decagon, yeah.
House Murders.
Decagon House Murders. What a nice book to have laying around. Indiana Jones' Invisible Bridge, yes. The invisible kid that we still must traverse, even as grown-ups. We must still make those leaps of faith.
Yes, and the Sherlock Holmes Consultant Detective scenarios, the early one, very much have that invisible bridge that you have to cross at the end. Yeah. And that's what makes them beautiful. I think many other detective games have tried to emulate it, but it's so hard to strike the right balance between not too obvious and not too obscure, right?
Exactly. And you don't want to have the case solved before the very, 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 very end.
No.
It should be the last thing that happens.
I mean, I think that you should have your clues, lay them out before you, and then you should sit and think and reflect and discuss and then come up with a good solution and then go for it.
Exactly.
That's how it should be.
Or you should sleep on it.
Even then, sleep on it.
We're not going to sleep on it tonight. Tonight we're going to be 100% efficient.
Through.
Yes. Okay. Let's.
Should we slowly begin? Because we've been hanging out for an hour and we haven't really gotten around to it.
That was quite an aside.
That was quite an aside. But I think it's important to know that that we are standing on the shoulders of giants here.
Definitely. Yes.
And today, as you can all see in the newspaper, is the 30th of June, 1929 in Arkham. It's Sunday. It's a Sunday, June the 30th, 1929. This is the day's paper, and the paper has stories that may or may not be of relevance to the case we're trying to solve. Like letters to the editor, something about a theft at an exhibition.
Obesity soap commercials.
Obesity soap commercials, black magic books, a woman attacked in Uptown Park.
Ooh.
And some birth announcements. 3 twins. What is this weird thing down at the bottom? My eye is striking something weird. Are you seeing this, guys?
Already a clue?
Seeing this down at the bottom? Like there's some superimposed text which says, saw a missing child. Do not follow baby? No, do not follow something. I don't know. It could be a strange misprint.
Maybe a clue?
Could be a strange misprint.
So this stream would basically be us reading the newspaper for 6 hours.
Yeah, that's how we roll. No, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to read a little intro to the game.
Yes, we need the case first.
We need the case. And normally in the Sherlock Holmes game, it would be Sherlock Holmes who is offering us a case. But this time around, it's Professor Henry Armitage. And for you Lovecraftians out there, Henry Armitage, he is the guy who is fighting the Dunwich Horror in the eponymous novel by Lovecraft. Okay. So he is one of Lovecraft's fabled characters, and he is one of the characters that Lovecraft apparently identified with the most. An old professor from Miskatonic University.
Makes sense.
Makes sense. The old geezer.
Old geezer.
And we are basically his students at the university or his friends or someone in his circle. And he's getting old and strange things are afoot. And he needs help to make sure that things don't go awry because people look in strange places. This is the new case cover that you're seeing here. We are playing
of evil.
Exactly.
This does not bode well.
It does not. Okay. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
Everyone's ready. I just need a sip. And
let me just show you this nice image that is actually super nice. Of the Miskatonic University, I'm assuming.
I think.
Very nice.
Yeah, pretty good. That's pretty good. All right. So, A Grain of Evil, Investigation 1, Arkham, Massachusetts, June the 30th, 1929. Responding eagerly to a telegram from your friend and mentor, you rush to the Miskatonic University Orne Library. There is a warm summer breeze gently rustling the trees, allowing the dappled sunlight to flicker lightly onto the streets. You cross the university quadrant to reach a great Gothic entrance.
Of course.
Professor Henry Armitage, Miskatonic's erudite librarian, greets you at the polished wooden door to his office. He leans on his cane, his wrinkled face cracking into a smile. Well then, I have an interesting little problem for us to explore. It has been some time since we exercised your deductive faculties. So how about a simple mystery to get you going again?
Sure.
He's apparently concerned for our mental capacity. Which is, you know...
could be legit.
He's seeing right through us, man. Obviously, There is a chance that the events last evening involve more than a simple crime, but I do not believe that to be the case. However, after my experience of last summer, one can never be too careful. He shudders visibly upon alluding to his confrontation with the Whateleys in the village of Dunwich.
The Whateleys?
That's Wilbur Whateley was the twin brother of the horrible monster in the Dunwich Horror. Bred by
my Cthulhu lore is not strong. I'll just lay it out on the table here.
That's even better. Then it's just strange names. It's just Whateleys and Dunwich and Armitages.
Yes.
Armitage settles in a chair, adjusting the violets on his desk. Inspector Garrison called over breakfast this morning and precipitated my note to your good self. It seems the inspector is at a loss and requires our specialist assistance. Last evening, as you may have noted from this morning's edition of the Arkham Advertiser, that is the newspaper, a disturbance occurred on West High Street. It was a pleasant enough evening, and at 7 o'clock the streets were relatively full. A young woman, well-dressed and of seemingly good health, collapsed on the sidewalk after emerging in a state of distress from the Uptown Park. And the Uptown Park is right here, where the spying glass is in Arkham. A small crowd gathered to assist the young lady. An orderly from St. Mary's Hospital and his wife stooped over to receive her, and a policeman was found. The orderly noticed a growing crimson stain seeping onto the woman's blouse.
Blood, perhaps?
You are certainly at your sharpest this evening. He slit the garment free with his pocket knife. At once, the horrific nature of a wound in the lady's chest was apparent, and he stemmed the steadily increasing flow of blood. I'm happy to report that disaster was averted by his quick thinking. An ambulance arrived in good time to take her to the hospital, and they have managed to stabilize her condition. So she's at the hospital, St. Mary's Hospital.
We have a witness.
A victim and a witness, perhaps.
Do you call a victim, is a victim also automatically a witness if it's alive?
I mean, even if dead, I think it's an inaccessible witness. You can't call them in court.
No.
The librarian pauses to sip coffee from a delicate cup. The policeman assumed this was an attack by an unknown assailant until the woman regained consciousness momentarily in the ambulance. She raved nonsensical syllables before crying out that the trees were alive. Alive! While dealing with the mysterious lady, the policeman was sharp-eyed enough to spot a man lingering in the crowd of onlookers. The man was acting in a furtive way, watching the proceedings with a curious detachment. He was tall, over 6 feet, with a worn brown suit and dark hair, and a distinctive birthmark under his left eye.
That's already pretty
very
good.
Obvious.
That's very obvious. But isn't it also the MO of like some serial killers that they like to, peruse the crime scene after the fact?
Yes, but don't do so if you have like a distinctive birthmark under your left eye. You'll be picked out.
Stay at home.
And if you're over 6 feet tall, yeah. When the policeman called to the man, he fled the scene. Being preoccupied with the lady, the policeman was not able to pursue and noted a description in his pocketbook. So some policeman has a description of this guy in his pocketbook, apparently. Armitage sits back, the leather of his chair creaking. He steeples his fingers. The identity of both the woman and this mysterious fugitive remains a mystery. It is also for us to determine if there are forces beyond the mundane at work. You'd better get going. Let Garrison's men take care of the crime scene. They do get rather protective. Probably a hint that we shouldn't visit the crime scene.
But isn't that the first thing you do as a detective? Is to visit the crime scene?
If you're a conventional detective. But we are a super smart, unconventional detective.
We don't even need to know anything.
We just guess. Before you set off, Armitage says, remember, if you need help, come see me at my home. I am unlikely to be in my office when working a case.
Okay. So he's also on the case?
He is sort of, I think, following the case in the background. like in Sherlock Holmes Consultant Detective, Armitage, he will be solving the case very quickly.
Yeah, okay.
At the same time, we're trying to solve it. And we probably won't be able to solve it as quick as Armitage.
No, of course not. But yeah, that's also the same sort of mechanic that Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective has. That the case is actually already solved, which I always thought was a little bit strange. The case is basically solved. Now it's just up to you to see if you can do it as good as Sherlock Holmes or as good as Armitage in this case.
Yeah, he's just testing us a little bit, but he's basically keeping all the evil at bay somehow, I think. And so the thing is, now that we have our case, the remedies we have to solve this case. We have a map with a lot of locations. Each location has a unique identifier, and we can look the identifiers up in this heavy tome and see if there's anything at that location. But instead of just choosing random numbers on the map, we have a few tools. So first of all, we have the directory. So that is basically a list of people and businesses and everything that you can find in Arkham, from, you know, goldsmiths and private persons and pawn shops and hospitals and libraries, and everything can be found in that book.
There's the blacksmith. There's the Bohemian theatrical supply store.
A very, very good place to go always.
And School of Positive Thinking.
Oh,
maybe that's where we start.
Maybe that's what we need.
That's what we need right now. So it's like a yellow pages.
It's the yellow pages. So, of course, since there are so many entries in the book, you kind of need to know what you're looking for. But if you know, for example, let's say you found a ring with a distinctive mark, you might want to try to go and visit some of the goldsmiths in order to try to find out if there are any clues there. The second thing we have is a list of allies. That's basically the people that we already know that we can always visit.
And this is this printout here, right?
Yeah, it's actually just me who made this list. It's not an official one. So we just have here the names and locations. So we have, for example, Professor Armitage. We can visit him in his home or at his office. We know a doctor at the hospital. We know professors. We know civil servants, criminologists. We also know an underworld informer. We know an occultist. We know a journalist. And there's also a speakeasy, which I had to just remember what a speakeasy was. Do you know what a speakeasy is?
During the Prohibition, you weren't allowed to serve alcohol, so you had to sort of hide away bars in the back room somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of an illegal bar, underground illegal bar, a speakeasy. And there's also the Arkham Sanatorium, where you can always go and listen to mad people say mad things, which may or may not be helpful.
So as an Arkham investigator,
yes,
my first thought is, who is this woman?
Yes.
And why would anyone want to harm her?
Yes. And there was something about the newspaper, right? So I think the story of her attack is actually written in the newspaper, if you look.
We have a woman attacked in Uptown Park. A disturbance occurred around 7 p.m. last night in West High Street when a young woman collapsed. Bystanders were able to provide assistance to the woman, who was obviously in distress and grievously injured. The police were summoned and were quickly on the scene. An ambulance took the young woman, who as yet remains unnamed, to St. Mary's Hospital for urgent treatment. Detective Garrison of the Arkham PD has made an appeal for any witnesses to the incident to come forward and provide statements. Police are treating the incident as a criminal one. Garrison also expressed surprise, remarking that this type of crime was unusual for the district, one of Arkham's wealthiest areas.
Oh, good to know.
But he felt this was an isolated incident and citizens of Uptown should not worry unduly.
And so this is Uptown Park. So this is apparently sort of what he calls the wealthy district down here in this area. There's a park right there, and there was apparently a crowd gathering for some reason.
Gawkers.
Yes. So I think we know where she is. So there's always the possibility of going to the hospital. It also seemed that she may not be conscious because apparently she was just briefly awake but we could, of course, still perhaps learn some clues from that.
Sure.
Then she has a wound. And
in her chest, apparently.
In her chest. And we do know, let's see. Oh, actually, Dr. Vincent Sutton at St. Mary's Hospital, where he's one of our informants he's a specialist on injuries and victims. So he may also be able to say something about the nature of the wound.
Sure.
Then we know that some detectives took down notes of with a description, I think, of this guy with a birthmark.
A suspicious character. Witness, a suspicious bystander.
Yes. And Inspector Garrison, he's also one of our contacts. And he's the head of detectives. So we can also visit him at the police station, for example. And that is more or less what we have, right? Then, of course, you can always prowl through the newspaper, but perhaps we'll do that a little later, or just, I saw a story about someone who had died after drinking illegal liquor. I, of course, feel like going to the speakeasy already, but that did
I'll just end our case.
A little bit.
I think we'll just end our case prematurely. But what surprises me is, why would you attack anyone? But even more, what surprises me, why would you do it at 7 p.m. in the evening?
Yes.
Isn't it very obvious? Won't you just attract witnesses in a public place?
But perhaps she wasn't meant to escape, because there wasn't an attack, as I understand it. There was some disturbance, and a young woman collapsed, and she had a horrible wound. So
you think she might have been in an apartment or something and then escaped out into the streets?
Maybe. Maybe she escaped something horrible.
And then we have this weird, the only testimony we have from her is that she saw that the trees were alive.
The trees were alive.
So that's also very unusual.
So she may have been in some kind of state when
but of course she's delirious. She's full of adrenaline. She's in and out of consciousness. Who knows?
Yeah.
It's not a very trustworthy statement. I mean,
no.
And also, how would it help? The trees are not alive. We know this.
I love that what's happening now is that this is exactly like playing Call of Cthulhu in 1992 or something. That everyone knows that there are horrible occult powers at work, but we all pretend like, nah, I don't believe in that stuff. but we're playing this game that patently tells us that there are tentacle horrors lurking in the shadows, and this is one of the big deceits of playing Call of Cthulhu. But it's good.
But it's like in zombie films, even if you're attacked by a ravenous army of limping, drooling, greenly fleshed flesh eaters, you still don't call them zombies.
No, it's always like, the neighbor's always been acting a little weird. Or, look, their boy is out again. It's like,
we're not going to be jumping to conclusions.
Do we have any help in chat on what to do?
Well, we have, Tatsuvidra says, we librarians always doubt your mental capacities.
Well, that was not helpful.
That's not helpful at all. And also, I'm not sure I want to go to the library anymore.
Yeah, I don't also think we have anything in the points in the direction of a library right now.
But we have very little to go on.
We have that. I mean, it probably wouldn't be too bad to visit the hospital just to get, even though she may be unconscious, but just to get an idea of who is she. Is she also an upper class? Is she young? Is she old? Is she...
What was she wearing?
What was she wearing?
What
kind of wound does she have?
Yes. And what else is... Does she have any other marks on her body or scrapes underneath her fingernails and stuff like that?
Yes, does she have bark in her hair from the trees that were alive?
Like Evil Dead or Evil Dead 2, where there's a famous tree attack scene?
Oh, yeah.
Is it Evil Dead 2, maybe? Or is it the first one?
I could confuse those movies.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Okay, I think the hospital is good. Evil Dead 1, thank you, Stigen.
So, Tatsavitra asked if it's possible to go to the park.
I would also like to see the crime scene. I think that's just so obvious.
Yeah.
So why are we being dissuaded from going there?
Armitage says that they're very protective about the crime scene.
But we are the investigators of this case.
Well, we're not really. Because there are actually actual detectives working on the case. We're just Armitage's friends.
So second-rate sleuths.
Yeah, we kind of just, like, I think, private amateur true crime enthusiasts.
Okay. Maybe, but there's also another thing. I don't remember what it said in the case description, but it says here that Detective Garrison of the Arkham PD has made an appeal for any witnesses to the incident to come forward and provide statements. So I'm guessing that they would give those statements to the police.
Yes, but by visiting him, we might be able, because he's one of our allies. So if anyone has come forward, he might be able to share some of that information.
Yes, so that's also a way to go. True crime enthusiasts, the worst kind of help. Yes, unfortunately. We're working on this podcast at the moment, so I was just wondering if you could give us any saucy details on the case. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have the hospital. I think it's a good...
Should we start with that just to get an idea of the victim?
Let's hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
And then there's also the park and there's the inspector. So what do? We try to find out where the hospital is. And
is there any sort of passage of time?
There is. Yeah. But the time tracker is so ugly a component that I will not put it in frame.
Thank you.
So we're just playing without time.
Okay, that's fine. I think that's good.
I don't care about tracking time.
No, fuck that.
So the Dr. Vincent Sutton at St. Mary's Teaching Hospital is in C11. So we can take our little magnifying glass and see it's right over here. So luckily she was attacked very close to a hospital. It was just around the corner.
That's very fortunate.
Maybe significant.
Maybe significant.
Let's...
We have an open mind at this point.
Oh yeah. Okay, so this is a bit of text that comes here. Yeah. So I'll read it slowly and we can discuss as we go along.
Okay.
Okay. Armitage often mentions his friend, Dr. Vincent Sutton, as being a useful point of contact at the hospital. And you ask for the doctor at the front desk. So we don't actually know him. It's just Armitage know him. So we just say, look, like we're friends with Armitage, and can you tell us something?
Such a bad way to start.
The stern administration assistant frowns at your request. I would have done the same.
Understandably so.
But dispatches a message to Sutton all the same. After you wait for what seems like an age, Dr. Sutton appears and greets you in a detached and professional manner. He is in his mid-40s, and his clean-shaven head amplifies the size of his thick, horn-rimmed glasses. He allows a cursory nod when you tell him the reason for your visit. Of course, Armitage told me to expect you, he says. You explain that you're investigating the mysterious case of the woman brought into the hospital after her collapse at the park. It's not my case, but let's head up to the wards and see what we can find out. Sutton leads you through the white halls, weaving in and out of the foot traffic. On the way up, he asks whether Armitage expressed interest in the lights dancing around at the nearby Emperor home.
Say that again?
On the way up, he asks whether Armitage expressed interest in the lights dancing around at the nearby Emperor home. Is that a newspaper thing?
Nearby Emperor home, nearby the park, or?
If you look at the newspaper, I try to look at the directory and see if there's an Emperor home. This is already way beyond our capabilities. We're getting clues that we don't even understand.
We don't even know where to start.
There's something called W Emperor, but that may be a person. At U41.
So the second page is the next day, or?
Yeah.
Thursday, okay. There doesn't seem to be anything mentioning weird lights at the Emperor's home.
The Emperor home is right next to Sutton Park.
Okay, that's significant.
That is very significant, I'm sure. And also, so we're now looking, we're basically looking at two versions of the same newspaper, but mine is a little longer.
You have more content in yours?
Yeah, I do. They cut down on the content.
So this is actually easier in a way. Because there's less...
Unless they cut out the references to the Emperor's home.
Properties. Would the owners of the Emperor home be sure to secure the property, as workers from the hospital have seen light on the 3rd floor? Workers from the hospital have seen light on the 3rd floor of the Emperor home.
How can... If the hospital is there and the Emperor home is over here... If they spend a lot of time looking very carefully out the windows. Does it say if Emperor, is it a name of a person or is it, do we know that?
Owners of the Emperor home.
The Emperor, it sounds like some kind of official building, right?
The Emperor. Tall buildings, yes, that could explain it. The tall hospital looking down on a smaller building, yes.
Yeah, maybe.
Emperor is like a German emperor or...
I mean, there is someone who clearly has who says where it says Emperor W Emperor.
Yes.
So it could just be his building, and it's right next to the park. So it sounds almost too obvious for it not to be that. So he asks about whether Armitage has expressed interest in that little thing. And then he goes on to say, some of the hospital workers have seen them, and the old building is supposed to be abandoned. There we have our answer.
There's no one living there.
And you can also perhaps write, I don't know if you did that is U41, because that's what we need to look up if you want to go there.
Okay.
When you tell him that Armitage hadn't mentioned it, the doctor shrugs. You arrive at Ward 6, and Dr. Sutton makes his way down a row of beds, stopping at the foot of one containing an attractive young woman. The woman is sleeping soundly, and Sutton lifts the chart from the end of the bed and consults the notes. This is exactly how I expect a hospital to be working, right? Someone comes and lift the charts and then read out something absolutely horrible that concerns the person lying in the bed. We still don't have her name. She is listed here as a Jane Doe. Strange. The wound on her chest was deep, likely created by a sharp blade cutting into the flesh. However, 5 of the upper ribs on the left side were also fractured during the incident. It is as though someone removed or was attempting to remove something from her chest cavity. Most unusual.
Horrible.
Dr. Noyes conducted the surgery to reset the bones. So could something be hidden within the chest cavity since they cut her open and broke open the bones? Or did something come out of her?
Oh, a chest burster.
Speaking of unusual, Noyes cleared away a good deal of brownish-colored mucus from the wound. He sent a sample to the lab. The lab assistant was sent to the university library to consult medical treatises, as they were unsure of what the substance consisted. Pascali knows about strange things as well. So what he's saying here basically is that there is a sample that's sent to the lab, and that the lab assistant may be at the university library to consult some books, medical tree. We may have to go to a library to consult something about that mucus. And Pascali, he's one of our contacts. He's a local occultist, spiritualist, and one of Henry Armitage's, not arch enemies, but someone that he's not really fond of.
Yes.
Because he's also a practitioner of the occult.
What was his name, Pascalis?
Pascali. I think he is on our allies list. And then also University Library. As Sutton ends his speech, a nurse arrives to administer a shot. No sooner is the needle withdrawn from the woman's arm, she thrashes in the bed. Sutton doesn't look concerned, and he pats the nurse on the shoulder. The discomfort will quickly pass. Then, shockingly, the woman's eyes snap open, and she screams a piercing shriek. Sutton calls for help as the woman raves madness, spittle dripping from her chin. Only at Bayfriars. But no, not here, not there, the trees. Why are they walking? Edward, where is my Edward? Why is... The trees have eyes. Edward, we're supposed to meet at the bell. Why are we here? Edward, it hurts, Edward. Stop it, stop it. Sutton steps in and holds the woman's shoulders, talking to her in a calm, soothing voice. After a few minutes of delirium, the woman slips into a peaceful rest. So she was screaming about only at Bayfriars, but no, not there.
She was supposed to meet an Edward at Bayfriars.
She says, Edward, we were supposed to meet at the Bell.
Oh, the Bell.
With a big B. Why are we here? Perhaps? So it's like she's been transported. And something about trees and something that's hurting. It hurts Edward. So Edward is doing something to her, perhaps.
Yeah, or she's calling to Edward for help?
For help, because something else is doing something to her. Yeah. She's really been through the mill, Sutton says. The wound will heal just fine given time. However, as you have seen firsthand, there are some scars that are beyond our ability to...
Emotional scars.
You have learned all you can from the good doctor. Her effects were taken for examination by the police. I think they were taken over to the criminologist, Dr. Corbett. Please let me know if you discover her identity. I'd like to contact family members. She needs someone to look after her. So Dr. Corbett, the criminologist, who is also one of our allies, if I'm not mistaken. Am I mistaken? No, not. Criminologist Herbert Corbett. He apparently has her personal belongings. So he may be able to tell us something more about her identity.
So we have...
That was a lot of clues.
There was a lot of clues. The Bayfriar, what was that she mentioned?
I'm not sure. She talked about Bayfriar. I think Bayfriar, is that a place?
A pub or an area or... And then she mentions the Bell. What is the Bell?
Yeah, what is the Bell?
That sounds like a pub or...
Yeah, or some kind of popular landmark.
Yeah.
Could also be...
We need to find Edward.
What is the Bell? That is right. I mean, there are plenty of churches. And... Bayfriar.
Bayfriar, is that the name of the speakeasy Tativitra suggests?
Oh, yeah, maybe, but I'm not sure I can find the speakeasy in the... Oh, we, of course, know where the speakeasy is, but it doesn't have a name in our records. It just says it's a place for libations and rumors. And there are the docks with all the warehouses. There is something called Arkham Bell Telephone.
Okay.
But, I don't know.
The Bell?
Yeah, maybe a little... The stretch. Then there is Copley Memorial Bell Tower at the university.
That's
Bell
maybe
Tower sounds more like it.
More like you would meet...
Landmark kind of thing, right?
Yeah, you would meet under the bell tower.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Bayfriars Church. Under churches abandoned in the Yellow Pages.
So could it be the Bell of the Bayfriars?
Maybe. It's in F14. So if we look at the map, F is over here. And I need my spying glass to find number 14, I think. It's up there. Okay. So here, up there is an abandoned church.
Yes. So it's not...
So this is the park where it happened.
Not too far from the...
This is the Emperor House with the strange lights. And this here is the church. Should we circle some things on the map?
Yeah.
Let's see here. Get this Mygo out of the way.
Churches abandoned. Love that entry. How many are there in this godless town?
Well, there are two. Bayfriars and the West Church.
Okay.
So I'm just circling and then we can try to remember what it is. Is this even working, or did you take a defect drawing instrument?
It's not really working, no.
Okay, that's why I stopped taking notes.
Yes, became too complicated.
I mean, we're not really prepped as detectives here with basically failing writing implements.
Yeah, I'm just
curious.
I'm just sort of going through the newspaper just to see if there's anything that sort of pops up.
Well, what I took from it, there's this thing at the Emperor house where there's some weird lights. Then at the university library, there is that test of that mucus in the wound.
Yeah.
She was rambling about Bayfriars Church, so meeting in an abandoned church.
Yeah.
And lights in an abandoned house. Something about abandoned buildings here.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is Dr. Corbett, who has her effects and may be able to do something about her identity from that.
Her effects I would be very curious about.
Yeah, because, I mean, the doctor also said that he would be interested, or we should get back to him if we discover her identity, right?
Mm. And other clues that we should not forget is that we can still talk to the police inspectors to see if any witnesses has come forth.
Yes, we must not forget the old clues.
No, and what else? And then we're at the scene of the crime, of course, but that's maybe not. We've been dissuaded from visiting the scene of the crime.
Yeah, and it seems like we have a lot of clues right now.
Yeah. So I think the doctor, the police, and the abandoned church are my most valued leads right now.
Yeah. What I like about, I mean, there may be some bases that we have to cover, like going to the criminologist and find about her effects, but those are the standard moves. But I like now that we just picked up, I mean, if we're going to try to be this intuitive psychic detective, we just pick up on Bayfriars.
Yes.
It's an abandoned church, and there's something about an abandoned building as well.
Yes.
So maybe...
So what's going on in these abandoned abodes? You're right that we may have to uncover these places while the lead is still warm.
Yeah. I mean, if the idea is that she was basically just collapsing in the street and there was no sign of an attack, I mean, it could be that she just stumbled out of that abandoned house. It could be something happened over at the church. She was brought to the Emperor's house. She somehow escaped in her delirium and collapsed, and that guy in the crowd was trying to...
And Tatsevich also mentions actually the Emperor house, because we don't know if she was going to the Emperor house, if she came from the Emperor house, or the Emperor house is just a red herring.
We have no idea.
But I do think that the church is a little bit more interesting because she mentioned it herself.
Yes. And I think, I mean, something is obviously happening in the Emperor house since there are lights there.
Yes.
So someone is preparing something or doing something, but it could also just be squatters.
Yes, we don't know. We might find out yet. So should we go to the church? Is that what we're leaning towards?
I mean, it's the least obvious of all the clues. Or perhaps it is obvious.
It is pretty obvious, I would say, but the good thing about this clue is that it's not... It's very vague in a sense. We don't know if anything comes from it at all. We don't even know if that's what she's talking about.
No, but there's also perhaps a sense that I don't know who this Edward character is.
No.
But if he's still there, we want to go grab him fast.
Definitely.
If you're thinking like time is of the essence, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, yeah, we can go to the criminologist, we can go to the library, we can do all those things. But perhaps we also need to be out there in the field and catch the culprits.
Yeah. So that's why I like the church, because it's a hot lead.
Yeah. Should we do that?
Yeah, let's go to the church.
All right. It is if
you,
14.
By the way, if you want to mark, you have something better.
Oh, there's something that people can perhaps also see. Go church. We have support. And yes, Tatsevitra, we can go to the Emperor house. It's a named location, so... Okay. Let's just map this. So down here is the Emperor house. Oh, I should worry. Take care not to obscure the identifier. And up here...
You have to mark the crime scene.
Yes, the crime scene is the X. X marks the crime. It's right outside Upton Park. The trees are alive. I'm now connecting with that it happened right outside a park.
Yes, that makes sense. I was thinking that too.
She would also have come stumbling out of the park.
Yeah. So
You were thinking that, but you were not sharing?
No,
You thought it was so obvious that you need to share it?
It had only loosely formed as an idea that it has to be that in order for the trees to be alive, there would have to be trees around her.
Yeah.
So the park is probably something. She must have gone through the park at some point.
I'll draw a little tree here. It looks more like a mushroom cloud, but it's a tree. So let's go to the Bayfriars abandoned church. Yeah, it is really cool actually to have a yellow pages with those kind of listings. Do we have that like
Not anymore.
for Copenhagen, just like a list of abandoned houses?
I don't even know if they give out a physical yellow pages anymore.
No, maybe not.
Probably not.
I'm not.
Abandoned houses wouldn't be listed, I don't think.
A little bit too obvious. So, Bayfriars Church has clearly been abandoned for some time. There are a number of vagrants clustered around an oil drum fire. One
classic.
man spits menacingly into the fire, eyeing you with one good eye. You mingle with the vagrants, and eventually they open up. Wow, we got charm.
Yeah. Sweet talking
Or
to vagrants.
we also know how to have a dram.
Yes.
You describe the woman who was injured, and they tell you that a woman matching her description came by earlier with charitable gifts of food and clothing.
Wow.
I believe her name was Martha, the one-eyed man spotters. I didn't get a good look at her face on account of my one good eye.
Margaret?
Martha.
Martha. That's all?
That's all.
That's all we get?
But she came and delivered charities. So perhaps she's a do-gooder.
Maybe she's part of the church?
Yeah.
Delivering alms to the poor?
Yeah, she could be part of some kind of charitable.
Do we have any charities?
You want to check?
Yes. Just want to see the newspapers. If there's anything like that.
Yeah, let me check the director then.
Yeah.
See if they list charities. Oh, this is a weird yellow pages where things are not listed alphabetically. How challenging. Charitable organizations.
Yes.
You want to hear them?
Yes.
There is the Arkham SPCA. Something Christian Association, perhaps.
Yes, okay, yeah.
Then there is the Beacon of Hope Settlement Home. I mean, can you really, on the Hopeless Stream, visit the Beacon of Hope Settlement?
Surely not.
Surely not. It will not happen on the Hopeless Stream. Then there is Eleanor Peabody's charity home. Mm-hmm. And then there is the Miskatonic Valley Veterans Home. So it's basically 3 kind of different homes for, I don't know, homeless people. And then this SPCA, some kind of association, I think. And let's see, are any of them in the vicinity?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Are there any of them close to the church?
Well, C1 must be... C1 is over here.
Okay, yeah.
And so that's the Miskatonic Valley Veteran Home. The SPCA is in C27. So
Tsatsevitria seems to know that the SPCA is the Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals.
Okay. Maybe also cruelty to trees.
Maybe, yeah.
And then there is 2 others in the R section of town over in this corner of town. So not like any obvious thing there. But basically, she's been there. Mm-hmm. Was she lured out? Because she said something about, not at Bayfriars, or what was it she said?
She had already delivered the goods. And then she must have been on her merry way when whatever happened to her happened.
She said only at Bayfriars, but no, not there. We were supposed to meet at the Bell. Why are we here?
Why are we here?
A different place.
But she has already been to the Bell. Or maybe that's not the Bell.
Yeah.
Okay, the Bayfriar Church doesn't have a mention of a bell. Did we ever find out if there's any bars or speakeasies or anything called something Bell?
Yeah, we didn't, also because I don't think bars would be listed because of the prohibition.
No. It didn't happen there at the Bayfriar. Teleportation, bilocation, involuntary astral projection.
Yes.
All good.
All sound suggestions in this day and age.
So she had been sort of. Maybe we can sort of map her journey from that day.
Yeah.
But we only have one. We have two places that she has, where we know that she has been. She's been at the park and she's been at the church.
Yeah.
And if we draw a direct line between the two,
it's not very far.
Not very far. The bell.
One thing, the only thing I have with that abandoned house, it just seems so upfront and obvious.
Yeah.
Like we're being told about it and it's in the newspaper and being reminded. What's all this mean? Perhaps we do need to have a little more background information somehow.
Yeah. So you're thinking should we check out her belongings or check out the witness statements?
Yeah, because there's of course also trying to find out who the fugitive is.
Yeah.
And Inspector Garrison said that he was asking people to come forward. So that could also be an option to try to see if there were any witnesses.
I think looking for witnesses is good. Her belongings might... Maybe that's not as strong. It's hard to tell. But then it's also...
It's just charitable goods.
Yeah. Where did she expect to meet Edward again? At the... yeah, that's a good question. We don't know. She said at the bell, perhaps?
She said at the bell with a big B. I don't know how we heard it was a big B, but she said at the bell.
So that's one thing. Maybe that's a bar, speakeasy, or a restaurant, or...
We know one speakeasy, but we don't know the name of it. Perhaps it doesn't have a name, really.
And then Tatsevitra also said any Marthas in the phone book.
Well, we can only look up last names. And first name is just the first capital letter. So whoever is an M could be a Martha.
Okay.
So we need a little more. Perhaps, of course, her belongings
could reveal her...
some kind of identity.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
That's of course, a possibility.
Martha Bell, perhaps? Yeah.
Meet at the bell? Yeah, I don't...
But her belongings and witnesses, those are the two strongest places that I would like to know about.
We should start out checking out one of those and, diners. There is something called the Bell Cafe.
The Bell Cafe.
At M42.
That's gotta be the one. M42?
Let's just see. I'm gonna take out my... Did we burn down M42?
I think it's only a question before we burn something.
Yeah, probably. Oh, M is there. It's just difficult to see. So M42. Yeah, excuse my slowness here,
Can you see anything?
It's a question of looking glasses. M42. There it is. Can you give me that? There you go. That's right up here.
That's maybe somewhere to go. But by the way, now we're at the church, right?
Yes.
Should we go to the Bell Cafe?
I'd rather, now that I think it's, we're already on the path of trying to pick apart her ramblings.
Yes.
And try to make some sense.
Yes.
So yeah, it's probably a good way to get to know her.
We follow the lead. We follow the lead.
M42.
M42.
Yes, that's important.
The Bell Cafe.
It is the Merchant District, M42. The Bell Cafe is a homely establishment, all wood paneling with quaint furniture and gingham patterned cloth. I don't know. The smells of baking fill the small eatery, and it is far from unpleasant. Stomach rumbling, you approach the counter and ring the bell. You are greeted by a thin, mousy woman. Her sleeves are rolled up, her apron tied tight, and her cheeks are rosy from exertion. Can I help you? Did you want some coffee or food? Not wishing to impose. Yeah, okay. And resisting the urge to pause for a meal, you explain the purpose of your interruption. At your description of the woman who was attacked, the cafe owner becomes concerned. Well, I must say that sounds very much like one of my regulars, Martha Modine.
Ooh,
we have a name.
Not Matthew Modine, but Martha Modine.
Martha Modine.
Wow.
She's a lovely woman, always wanting to help those less fortunate, and very much in love.
Ooh.
She would often come in with her sweetheart Edward to discuss poetry and the arts.
Oh, of course, I see
At the bakery.
At the bakery.
She gestures to a cozy-looking booth near the window. They always sit there. I can't believe that someone would hurt Martha.
No.
She's well-liked. You ask about the Bayfriars that Martha had mentioned. What? Bayfriars Church? I think it's abandoned, isn't it? I know Martha was always keen to help out the destitute and homeless, so maybe that's why she went there. Don't know. But we know. The woman shifts her eye back to the kitchen, and you realize that she is antsy to get back to work. With words of gratitude, you head back to the street.
Aha!
Aha! We have her last name.
Martha Modine.
Ooh, yeah.
That's excellent news. So, Martha Modine, she is betrothed or in love with Edward.
She's ready to do everything for Edward, and Edward has plans.
Oh my God, Edward!
I think Edward's
Dirty rat.
He is a dangerous fella.
So Matthew Modine. Oh, sorry,
Martha Modine.
Martha Modine.
And I can see Tsatsevich suggests Martha Bell.
Martha Modine. So we could look up Martha Modine or any Modine.
I'm just going to look up Modine so we can try to circle a Modine
Maybe we
location.
can find her or her parents or...
Yeah. Oh my God.
We're making some headway.
We are making some headway, but I am surprised to not find a Modine.
No?
There is a Modeste, but there's a B Modeste. There's an M Moffat. But there is no Modine.
No Modine. That is curious. That is
Martha,
very curious.
She cannot have a different name. She's not married, clearly.
No.
She could have, of course, parents with a different name.
And
she could herself be a destitute child that was taken in, and she's basically returning the favor.
But she did give out her last name to the owner of the bakery or the owner of the cafe.
They just knew her, at least like Martha Modine. I mean, it may not be her true name.
She may be lying. Modine.
But who would suspect Martha of lying? That sweet girl who always goes to the Bayfriars to give out stale bread to the homeless.
Yeah,
and talks about arts and poetry with Edward at the bakery.
And they're not married, right? They're young lovers.
The sweethearts, young lovers.
Yeah. Ah, damn it.
But we got a name. We
got a name. And so who wanted us to report her name?
But
not that we need to do that, but
no. But that was at the hospital.
Yeah.
So we could find her relatives.
Well, maybe the hospital would be better suited to find her relatives, since we can't look them up in the phone book.
Yeah, but we already visited the hospital, right?
Yeah, so you don't think we're going to get anything else?
Well, it's the same entrance.
Yeah,
so there's only one entrance per location.
Yeah, that makes sense. You can't go back and forth. Okay, so we have witnesses. We know her name. But Modine, But
I think there's something to explore about the relation between Martha and Edward, right? She's very much in love. And because, I'm trying to impersonate Peter Cheney.
Yes, please do.
As a very cynical and suspicious character who sees that love, and especially young love, is beautiful, but is also very easily exploited.
So you're thinking Edward is this rat, this charmer,
who is maybe he needs some kind of unwilling participants to whatever he's dabbling in.
Sure.
I'm not saying it's a cult, but I'm just saying that it might be.
I'm happy to accuse Edward of anything, basically. But the thing is, we don't know who Edward is.
No.
So it doesn't help.
No. I'm just jumping to conclusions.
That's what I'm thinking. We don't know anything about Edward. We don't know about his whereabouts, we only know that Martha has been walking through between the cafe and the church.
And we don't know his occupation, Edward, or we know they talk about arts and poetry. And I mean...
So an Edward that will be able to talk about poetry and arts.
Yeah, I don't know. There is a Dorothy Davis at Arkham Historical Society who's an expert on family histories and has access to genealogical records.
That's very vague. It could be, maybe she knows about Modines.
That's the thing. It could be that, but I also think it's a bit of a stretch at this point. And there's also a civil servant at the Arkham Town Hall who can provide access to birth, marriage, and death certificates, as well as property deeds. Who owns the abandoned house, the Emperor's house?
But wouldn't we have to, just thinking like game mechanic wise, if we were to visit those places, the game wouldn't know if we had discovered her last name or not. Absolutely
not.
So we would have to find Modine somewhere else in order to go further down that path.
Yeah, I'll find out that's her. She had a different maiden name or something like that.
Something like that, yeah. So that's not. So basically, this clue, since there's no Modine in the directory.
But that's why it may, because there's no Modine in the directory, it may tell us to go speak with someone who know about genealogies, to know the family history and why does she not show up. I think it's a little premature, but I think it may, if it turns out that she has a reason to hide her identity.
Yeah.
It could be interesting, right?
Yeah. So we may not have discovered her true identity.
Yes. And Tatsevitcher asked also an important but unanswerable question. Does Edward have a birthmark and is he tall?
Ooh.
Yes.
Asking the real questions here.
The real questions are being asked. I mean, I must say that I'm also a little drawn to the Emperor house because there is this, I have this sense that Ed was somehow using Martha for something else. I mean, I'm jumping to conclusions here.
Yeah.
But, and we know that there was some going-ons in a house for some time right next to the place. She cannot have walked long with that wound, right? She must have been close by, and there was mention of trees. So either the park or the Emperor house or both could be, Emperor house could be the scene of the crime, or the park.
Definitely.
But of course, we have already been warned that they're not letting anyone into the park, so that could be a dead end. But the Emperor house could give us a look
that could
down
be
to the park.
The true scene of the crime, the true crime scene.
Yes, and a view out of the window and into the park.
Yes.
So I mean, I think the story is very vague about lights in the house, but because of its location.
The location coincides with the crime.
Yeah.
So I think we should visit the... It's very tempting to visit the Emperor house. Just because it overlooks the park.
Yeah, and there's also some... I mean, I'm already drawing pentagrams in my mind, right? As any good occultist should do. And I'm just seeing that things are happening within
this diagram area. Yeah. She hasn't moved far from the crime scene in her daily goings on.
No.
Should we pick a place to visit and then do a small break?
Yes, I think that's a great idea. So
what do we choose? Where do we go? Do we go Emperor House, which is alluring?
I would say we go Emperor House because it's the most exciting. I think the other things may be more beneficial to our investigation.
It's a little bit more mundane, a little bit more classic approach.
Go look through her, find her, I don't know, her handkerchief and her picture of Edward in her belongings with the birthmark
on it. That's also a thing. Stiggin suggests the Emperor home. That's where the seance went very, very wrong. Edward, not believing a thing, but simply trying to impress his gal, called out, and the great beyond answered.
Yes.
Okay, let's go Emperor House. I think Stiggin Deluxe has settled the score here.
That's all the support we needed.
Yeah.
And we have just left Bell Cafe, where we have learned...
The Bell Cafe.
That the young woman, Martha Modine, who was attacked mysteriously or had a mysterious wound outside.
Yeah, should we do a little recap?
Yeah.
That's what you were doing, and I'm interrupting. But
Yeah, I was starting at the Bell Cafe, and I could feel myself moving further and further back.
Yes.
What happened was that yesterday evening, a woman was apparently attacked, or at least showed up outside Upton Park with a mysterious wound. She collapsed, and she was bleeding through from her chest. And she was hurried to the hospital, and she was rambling about trees being alive when she briefly regained consciousness. And then when a crowd of onlookers gathered at the scene, when the police arrived, in the crowd, the inspector, he noticed sort of a mysterious-looking fella who was over 6 feet tall and had a distinctive birthmark under his right eye.
An onlooker.
An onlooker. But when he tried to approach him, he fled. And because he had to take care of the scene and everything, they didn't catch him. And now we have found out about the young woman a few things. We have found out that the wound was like an incision, as if by a knife, but it could also be something else. And it may have been something else because 3 ribs were fractured, and it looked as if something had been removed from her chest cavity. Pretty grim. And she woke up in a delirium, and she talked about someone called Edward, and she talked about the Bayfriar Church, and she talked about the Bell Cafe, where she was supposed to meet Edward. And we have now discovered that the Bayfriar Church was a place where vagrants, they gather, and she would come there, Martha, to with charities to give out, like, I don't know, bread and drink, and not drink probably.
Martha seems to be this sweet, poetic, benevolent soul. She's in love with her sweetheart Edward. She goes to the church with armistice, and she's just a lovely young woman with her whole life ahead of her, and suddenly she has been struck by some evil force or some evil doer.
And we have suspicions about this Edward character. We don't know who he is.
You especially do not trust.
I have very unfounded suspicions. But we know that they used to meet at the Bell Cafe here.
But it's also that it's usually within your closest group of friends and family that the perpetrator can be found.
Always.
When dealing with a crime.
And Martha was rambling something about Edward and something about it hurts and stop it. And we don't know whether she was referring to something Edward did to her, or whether we were referring to something that was done to her and Edward was looking on or in the vicinity and she was crying out for help.
Yeah.
But they used to meet at the cafe, looking very much in love, talking about poetry and art. And as I said before, I think that Martha is a wonderful, beautiful, young, good-hearted woman, but that also makes her vulnerable. Love can be exploited.
Love makes you blind. So Martha Modine, what have you been up to?
What have you been up to, Martha Modine? And by the way, you might think, why don't these guys just go to Martha Modine's home? Well, Modine is not listed in the Yellow Pages.
We have no way of figuring out where the Modine family resides, where she resides.
So is Modine her real name?
Good question.
We don't know. But right now, we are on our way to an abandoned house, the Emperor home.
We're going to the Emperor home, the abandoned Emperor home, because weird lights have been seen in the windows from the people working at the hospital.
Which is over here, and the Emperor home is there. So someone has like really craned their necks, or the hospital is a very tall building.
Very tall building, apparently.
Yeah.
And so at night they've seen strange going on. Lights flickering. And you may think, well, that could just be a burglar if it's an abandoned house. It could be squatters. But the strange thing about the Emperor house is that it overlooks the crime scene.
I'm just remembering now. There is a story in the paper about vagrants or something coming at the docks.
Yes.
And it sounds a little bit... I must say...
We're referring to our newspapers here.
Yeah, we're referring to our newspaper. It does sound a little xenophobic, I must say.
Okay.
But
But it is an Lovecraftian tale after all.
Yeah. I hope that he hasn't fully taken on the Lovecraft character for this story. But there is something about the dogs. Let's see if we can find it in our respective newspapers. Yes, it's the letter to the editor.
Oh, yes.
I'll read the letter. You can read it if you have it also.
To the editor. Frankly, I'm appalled that the police have failed once again to take prompt action to stop illicit activities from occurring on the unvisited isle. On the unvisited isle.
That's out here.
Oh, that's in the middle of the
sewage lake,
the
sewage river.
Yeah.
Which is not a sewage river. It's just a river.
It is clear to all who live within sight of the cursed island that there are miscreants, no doubt devil worshippers of some such.
What?
Conducting ceremonies there. Fires have been seen from the Garrison Street Bridge. Reports to the police have fallen onto deaf ears with the response that there is not enough evidence for an investigation. It is about time the APO, the Arkham police officers, started to take our children's safety as a priority.
This is completely new to me. There are strange going on, I'm gonna circle it, at the, what was it called, Unvisited Island?
Unvisited Isle.
It also looks very difficult to visit because it doesn't have there's no bridge there.
Unvisited Isle.
But this was actually...
No doubt devil worshippers.
I mean, this is also,
is that not evidence enough?
These are also, the kind of letters that old grumpy men like ourselves write to the newspapers to have a bit of spark in their lives.
Exactly.
But it was actually not the story that I was thinking of. But it was very good that you read it.
Okay. You have another story?
Yes. I just see Tatsevitra says, perhaps there are many large trees there.
That's a good point.
Very good point.
Because for those of you who just joined us, the only thing we have of testimony from Martha, because she's in delirious state, having lost a lot of blood and so on and so forth, but she did mention that she saw trees becoming alive.
Ooh.
The trees are alive.
Martha, there's something called wind, and when the wind moves, the trees rustle and sway.
I just remember. Okay, complete aside.
Yes, let's hear
one of the best music videos that I've ever seen is a music video from a band called Occultocrati. And
Occultocrati. Yeah. Okay, that's great.
I think it's a Norwegian band. And
there should be more occultocrat governments around the world.
Definitely, yes. And the song is called Magic People. And it's just, you see like a first-person view of a hand that does like incantations or magical, just if you played Hexen or some first-person shooter from the 90s, this hand would just evoke things. And so there's one instance where the camera is sort of looking up into the tree line and the hand, gestures like this, and the tree starts swaying.
Ooh.
So I think maybe that same event could be occurring in Martha's point of view.
I think you may not be too far off.
So Martha is definitely a fan of Occultocrati.
But it's really it's a tough game when you need to have references like that in order to solve the riddle. But I'm glad you're here.
If you don't know the Occultocrati discography, then you don't have a chance to solve this murder. I'm sorry.
This is like some pop quiz for music nerds. No, the story that I was thinking of is not a letter to the editor, actually. It is an actual article, which is called Calls to Investigate River Dog Smuggling. Concerned citizens of Arkham addressed the bi-monthly town meeting last night. There was a town meeting last night.
Bi-monthly town meeting.
And chief amongst the concerns was the increasing numbers of strange foreign people slipping ashore via the docks late at night. It is as yet unclear from where these people come, but the regularity of this so-called human smuggling has prompted the city to launch a civil investigation into the matter with the dock authority responsible for the matter.
But isn't that how America worked 100 years ago?
Well, it's the land of migrants.
So I don't know, is that unusual?
Well, I think, very quickly you become like the original settlers. You're migrant number 1, and migrant number 2 is that strange foreign character you don't want in.
How long does it take to become an original member of society?
It takes half a generation, and then you're very original.
Nice.
So just saying that there's also something about an activity of outsiders, let's call it that, coming into town, maybe with nefarious purposes.
Yeah.
Which may also explain why there are people in this town that are not listed in the Yellow Pages.
And that might also explain why you would take on a false name.
Yes. Yes, if you are an illegal immigrant.
So I'm not sure that the xenophobia is directed towards the right kind of xeno.
No, I think there's. I mean, if those trees are really alive, I think it's those xenos we should be afraid of.
Yeah, definitely. Seems more likely that they walk there unseen than in the park, referring to the unseen isle, I think. Or the unvisited isle. Yeah.
Okay.
So, well, we were actually on our way to the Emperor House before all this this madness.
So if I'll just look what the reference is, it's U41. So if you'll move us down to the Emperor Home, I will see if anything can be discovered at U41. The Emperor Home is a dilapidated, crumbling building that exudes a kind of tragic melancholy for its loss of grace.
Nice.
The front door is boarded up, as are the windows. How are they seeing lights?
Great question.
Cracks in the boards, perhaps. Around the side, you find a window that has had the boards carefully removed and placed neatly on the ground. Squeezing through the narrow opening, we are adventurous. You find yourself in a moldy hallway. The smell of rot and damp meet the air. There is little to discover on the ground floor, apart from evidence that the hallways have been well trodden recently. The dust is thick everywhere, except a trail leading to the stairs. The trail continues up the stairs onto the third floor, in a large room, presumably a former music room. Judging by the moldy piano pushed into a corner, you find something disturbing. The room contains a large painted pentagram on the wooden floor.
Of course.
With unlit black candles at each point. A series of sigils are daubed across the walls and floor.
Oh my God.
God, and a bookmark just fell out.
Wow.
A Mythos Tales bookmark. This is an Easter egg we just discovered.
So a pentagram with...
And unlit black candles. And, oh my God, the word Nyarlathotep is reoccurring again and again.
Ooh.
You try not to stare at the symbols too closely as they make your vision swim.
Is that a sanity check we have here? Oh.
I think that's a sanity check. If we were playing Call of Cthulhu, the role-playing game, this is definitely a sanity check.
Wow.
Perhaps an illusion from the low light, you are not sure. Between a gap in the floorboards, you spot a small silver medallion, but apart from its unusual design, it doesn't tell you much.
Silver medallion?
Between the floorboards. So someone lost, probably, a silver medallion. So, but the black candles are unlit, which would seem to indicate that a ritual is being prepared but hasn't yet occurred.
Yes.
Or perhaps, if we are jumping to conclusions again here, Martha was intended as some kind of sacrificial victim.
A guest of honor at this...
that's another way to put it.
At this ritual.
Yeah.
So...
And she struggled and got away and escaped the house.
So a pentagram, that's ominous. Of course. Why would you choose a house in the middle of town to do these obscure rituals?
Because it's close to the park where the trees move.
So the silver medallion, could that be a medallion that belonged to Martha? Could it be a sacrificial, like a ritualistic medallion?
Or it could be, let's again assume that Martha may have been there, that someone did this horrible thing to her in her chest, and she was struggling, and she grabbed and, pulled the medallion off one of her assailants.
So in her escaping the ritual, that commotion broke out, and in the confusion, the medallion was lost between this.
Either her medallion or someone else's medallion.
Could the medallion be what they were trying to remove from her chest?
Oh.
Maybe she was wearing the medallion. Maybe it was like ingrained in her. I don't know what happens at these rituals.
Me neither. I have no idea. But actually, is Martha the kind of girl who would wear a silver medallion? Probably yes, right? She unfortunately, it has some strange design that we don't know what is. So that doesn't speak to it being worn by her, right? Because she would have like a little locket with an image of her mother, or
she would have a cross or something.
Yeah. Not some obscure, strange symbol.
The candles were unlit. The ritual never began, or perhaps they had been lit. What does it say?
It said unlit.
Unlit.
So it seems that the ritual.
Were they preparing the ritual? That it never took off the ritual?
Well, maybe she was supposed to be unconscious for the ritual, and I'm just speaking as a friend of Henry Armitage's, and he says all these things. But I'm also thinking that Pascali, the local spiritualist, he may know something about the medallion. He may know something about the pentagram. He may know something about these things.
And he may know what nefarious step.
I never heard that name before. I don't know what it is, but it sounds ominous.
Sounds ominous, for sure. So the occultist could be someone to consult with this newfound evidence?
Should we just try to, in our minds again, go through the clues that we have?
Let's not forget our early clues either.
No, that's the thing. I'm trying. Things we haven't looked at. We haven't checked up on witnesses.
No.
That's Inspector Garrison.
Yes.
He may have information about witnesses. We also would like to find an image of Edward, and we were thinking that among Martha's belongings might be an image or a photo of Edward that could perhaps confirm or unconfirm that he has a birthmark, right?
Yeah, because the bystander, sort of one of the more curious fellows, one of the more curious gawkers that was looking at the crime scene, bystanders, he had a weird birthmark under his left chin.
Yes, and he fled the scene when the police tried to approach him.
Yeah, that's incriminating.
So, witnesses, belongings, the occultist, are all three strong possibilities?
What else? And then we also talked about if we should consult like a family lawyer. What was it?
No, the genealogist.
Genealogists.
I still feel that I think it's a possibility, but I would like to be a little more sure that it's because it seems a little desperate right now.
Sure.
But I think it's something to keep in mind.
So belongings, occultist,
and witnesses. Are the three strongest.
For sure. Those are the three strongest. And in terms of locations, I don't think we have anything new.
We don't have anything. I'm just quickly running through. We also had, that's another thing. They discovered some mucus around the wound. And we know that some lab assistant was sent to the medical library to check out old medical records. So it might also be worth visiting the librarian at the Orne Library, if that was where he was going. I can't remember if that was where he was going.
But didn't they also say that the occultist might be able to answer some questions regarding that mucus?
They mentioned that he was at the university library, and then the doctor also said that Pascali knows about strange things as well.
Okay.
So the university library, though, may not be the same as the Orne Library. Oh, yeah, it is, because Miskatonic University Orne Library.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, I mean, the mucus sounds like a little bit too much of a detail right now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the possibility of trying to go out to the unvisited isle. Again, I think it's premature, but
it's premature in the sense that the only we have to go on there is just random ramblings from strangers.
Yeah, it's actually just a letter from a reader.
Yeah, and I don't think that letters from readers are anything to go by just in general.
No. As a longtime writer of letters to the newspapers, I wouldn't investigate my own letters to the newspapers.
Okay, so the strong leads we have right now are not strong. Actually, we don't even have any strong leads. The occultist, we could ask him about the ritual and the silver medallion and the weird writings on the wall. We could go to the police, see if by luck or chance that any witnesses has come forward. We could go and check on Martha Modine's belongings to see if they contain any clues at all.
I think the most important things right now is to find out who that bystander was and who Edward is, and whether Edward and the bystander is the same person.
So you are leaning more towards potential witnesses from the police?
I'm leaning more towards the criminologist and Martha's belongings, because I think she may have information on Edward.
On her person?
Yeah. She was in love with him. There may be a letter.
Maybe a love letter.
Yeah.
Love letter, love letter. Mm-hmm. Go get her, go get her.
I don't hope her love letter says that, or his love letter to her says that.
Let's go there then. Let's go to the criminologist, and check out her belongings.
That's one of our contacts. He's called Herbert Corbett, which is also a very Lovecraftian name. He is in D45. I don't think that matters too much, but I still want to kind of find out. Oh, he's up there in the other part of town. Unfortunately, my magnifying glass can't reach D45, but it's up in this corner of the map.
Okay.
So, should we?
Yeah. Before you do that,
yes,
I want to light some more.
Yes, we need more
fog,
mist.
More mist from the unvisited isle.
I think the sun is setting. Actually, just to explain to everybody the time mechanic in this game is that every time you go to a new location, the time marker advances by 1. And every day is divided into 3 periods. So there is a morning, an afternoon, and an evening. And we basically visited 1, 2, 3 locations on the first day. And then this morning we visited the abandoned house, and now it's the afternoon on the second day. And I think in some cases, I don't know in this case, but in some cases time may matter. So it'll say that you have to complete your investigation by this or that point in time, or something happens. But
does it change which page of the newspaper we're looking at?
No, there's one newspaper for each case. So. Okay. But we haven't been given any information that there is a timeline on this, and we're playing the first case out of 8 cases in this game. So I think maybe time is not a concern in case 1.
Okay.
It seems to be like that.
Okay, good.
But
I prefer it to be not timed.
Yeah. I don't care either. But D45 is the criminologist. So let me just see. Now I have to read here from the right case. Oh, that's why the bookmark perhaps was placed. So, yeah, right there. Okay. D45. Yes. You rap on the door to Herbert Corbett's lab. Oh, it's his lab. And after a moment, you're greeted by his helper. He recognizes you, we know him, and shows you through to Corbett's workroom. The workroom is a chemistry lab with several Bunsen burners blazing away. Herbert is huddled over a bench. On his head, he wears a magnifying apparatus, which he lifts to greet you. Welcome to my criminology laboratory, which is a really weird thing to say.
My name is, and you must be.
Yeah, that's great. He shakes your hand. Sensing that this man is kept very busy, you don't waste any time with pleasantries and just ask him directly about the attack on the woman in Uptown Park. Oh yes, a strange one. I believe that I can shed some light on her lodgings, if nothing else.
That would be great. Yes, please, sir.
Corbett reveals a brown cardboard box. Garrison left these for me to examine, and Garrison, of course, is the police inspector. The blouse, as you can see, is saturated with blood from a wound made in her chest. I was interested to note that the blouse was not damaged before she was administered first aid.
Yes.
Meaning that whatever happened, she had her blouse off.
Yeah.
Or something happened from within her body.
Yes. It's a smashing blouse.
Yes. This suggests that the blouse was put on the woman after the injury occurred. A decent thing to do.
It suggests. It doesn't necessarily...
It's not the only solution.
No.
It's Corbett's limited imagination coming into play here. More revealing is the lady's purse, which contains an address. Here, he rummages in the box. This is a bill from Rennie's boarding house and a receipt confirming that she had paid for the next month's rent in advance. There is a receipt as well from a bookstore.
Okay.
So there is Rennie's boarding house. I'm just gonna
try. It doesn't work. This one.
I mean, we are investigators without pens.
Yeah, exactly.
Rennie's boarding house is at F16.
F16.
So that is not so far, I think, from the Bell Cafe.
A boarding house. Does that suggest that she is herself homeless, or is
I don't think so.
That a regular
I think
lodging?
A boarding house is just a place where you lodge, but
Okay.
it may mean that she's from out of town.
Yeah.
Since she's not staying with family, apparently.
Yeah. That would also explain why we can't find her in the directory.
Yeah. And then also, there is that receipt from a bookstore, and I'm just going to show it to you guys quickly
without burning
here,
the book.
without burning my book. Hopefully, there it is. It's called Meredith Used Books. $3 received with thanks for Coleridge's collected poems.
So she's bought a book of Coleridge's collected poems.
And for faithful watchers of the Hopeless Strain.
Yes.
Our last stream was Desperation, the Isabel, about a horrific, nightmarish trip with a fishing trawler off the coast of Alaska. And our main theme for that story, devised by herself and not the story, was Coleridge's tale of the Ancient Mariner, the rhyme of the Ancient Mariner.
And the albatross.
And the albatross. That's Coleridge's poem. He wrote many others. Then it's a little difficult for me to read. Something inscribed on the inside cover with "To Edward with all my love."
So a present for Edward.
And then signed MXXX.
Wow.
But they discussed poetry.
Yes.
So she has bought Coleridge's collected poems.
Kind of dark
I mean,
gift to give
he
you.
didn't only write The Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, of course. He also wrote Kublai Khan, which was basically about drug-induced hallucinations.
Ooh. Interesting.
He wrote a lot of stuff. So, okay. So let me just also find Meredith Bookstore so we can circle that.
So we already have two great clues here. We have her lodgings and we have a bookstore where she bought poetry for Edward.
Yes.
Interesting.
Now the question is, where might that bookstore...
In the meantime, Tatsevitra can reveal that one of the lines of a Coleridge poem is, has this through caverns measureless to man, down to a sunless sea.
Again, you really need references in order to completely understand this game.
Yes.
And Meredith used... There are so many stores here. M50. I mean, I don't think it's a prime location like that, but I'm still going to note it down.
In a way, I think we already got a lot out of just the receipt.
Yeah. Yeah, and we now know where she used to lodge, which I think is very important.
She's keeping to a very narrow part of the map in her daily goings-on.
Yeah, she's not venturing across the river.
No. She was not meant to venture far.
Did I say M40?
I don't remember.
none of our brains are really working, which makes it really hard to play this game.
We failed many an insanity check.
Yeah, I did not say M40. I said M50. Yeah, we must have missed that sanity check before. There it is.
Did you circle the lodgings also?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is the bookstore. It's right around the corner from the cafe where she meets with Edward. And her lodgings is right down here. Close.
So she is basically...
Close. Oh, she's living right across from Old Arkham Graveyard, which is this one.
Ominous.
Ominous place to live. But I think there's so many graveyards in Arkham that you can't really live anywhere without being close to a graveyard.
No. But basically her daily life is within this square here.
Yeah, I mean, that's also why it makes sense for her to go from her lodgings with her charities over here to the church and deliver them, go up to the cafe, hang out with Edward, go there and buy a book for Edward. So yeah, all her activity looks almost like a pentagram around the old Arkham Graveyard.
Exactly what I was thinking. Just seeing pentagrams everywhere.
Yeah.
And what is the park that's surrounding that area? That's in the middle of that area.
Where?
This green.
Yeah, but that is the graveyard.
Well, that's the graveyard. Okay, yeah.
That is the graveyard.
So
it's almost gotta be the lodgings, doesn't it?
Or for our next visit.
Or I need to move us. We were. Okay,
we went
we went up here somewhere.
All the way up there to the criminologist.
To the criminologist lab.
Did he say anything else?
Did he give us anything else?
He talked about the smashing blouse.
He talked about the blouse and how it wasn't pierced apparently.
No.
By whatever pierced her chest.
We knew that already. We knew that the policeman on the scene cut it open in order to save her.
Yeah.
So would someone dress her up after a ritual, or would she dress herself?
I mean,
with an open chest wound, would that be a concern?
I mean, if she did not have an open chest wound, but someone took off her blouse, I can understand that she would take it back on.
Yes.
But if I had like a deep, serious chest wound and 5 fractured ribs, I'm not sure that I would even be in a state where I could painlessly take on a blouse.
No.
So it looks more like either someone put it on or something from inside.
Well, we have two. So there are two prevailing theories right now. They're kind of contradictory in a way, because one is that Edward did something to her.
Yeah.
We blame Edward for
blame Edward for most things. I mean, he's reading Coleridge.
Already there. You know, he's a derelict.
Well, was it about measureless seas or
But another theory is that something came from within. She was already possessed, or she already was carrying the evil within.
The tree inside me is alive.
Yeah. Nasty business, this.
Nasty business. And Tatsevitra is just laughing. I'm not sure at what, but I don't know that there's anything to laugh about in this case.
I think it's just the laughter of a madman.
Yeah. Losing sanity, failed his sanity check.
Another Coleridge quote. She gave with joy her virgin breast.
Ooh.
Perhaps she was a willing participant.
That is something we have to consider.
That is a third way of approaching this.
Because love makes you not only vulnerable, but also blind.
Yes. So she could have been convinced again by Edward, of course.
Naturally.
But why don't we...
never let Edward off the hook.
Could also be that she is so engrossed by demonology and occultism that maybe she's the one who suggested to Edward that they...
You're casting the blame on her now.
I'm just saying that maybe she's not a victim. Maybe she is the warlock.
Okay. I'm hearing you.
She's the necromancer.
I'm hearing you. We're going to have a debate about this later on. But maybe we need more evidence first.
We need more clues. But you're saying that you want to go and check out her lodgings, which I think is a great idea.
I think it's...
We need to know more about her.
That's the thing. Her and Edward are basically still blanks for us.
Yeah. So her lodgings is a great place to visit, I think.
Well, also there's still the library. There's still the witnesses.
The occultist.
The occultist. Yeah, they're all great.
They're all great, but I
The
think
legend sounds just more
it's more
concrete.
personal.
Yeah.
It's more following that hot lead.
Yeah. And by the way, I should also say, for you who may not know the game, that at any point, actually, the sooner the better, game mechanically, we can choose to say we know enough, and then we turn to the questions, and then we have to ask a series of questions that we don't know what's going to be.
Yeah.
And if we can answer them correctly, we can solve the case. But I don't think I'm ready to answer any questions right now.
And it's not going to be a yes and no test.
No, it's not. It's not going to be multiple choice either.
That's good. Okay, so I don't think we're there yet.
But just saying, like if lightning strikes out there in chat, do let us know.
Yeah. So three theories. Edward did it. The bastard Edward. No one likes Edward at all.
Hate poets, especially those who read poetry.
Yes,
They're the worst.
Scoundrels. She was possessed by demons.
Yeah.
From within, or she is herself a master of rituals.
Yeah. Who gives charities to vagrants at the church?
Maybe we're using the vagrants in part of her rituals.
Vagrants are part of the ritual.
And we know that the inhabitants of the unseen isle or the unvisited isle are devil worshippers.
We should, of course, also say at this point, there's nothing linking the ritual space in the empty house to Martha
anyone.
Or Ed. There was a silver medallion, so if we can find someone who's missing a silver medallion.
But it's just so weird that there's a satanic or sinister, let's say, ritual going on in an abandoned house right next to the crime scene. That is kind of suspicious.
Gotta be connected somehow.
It's gotta be connected.
Yeah. Oh, it's a very big red herring.
Yeah. It could be a red herring, yeah.
A subtle red herring then, or I don't know.
A red pentagram.
A red pentagram. Must be a red pentagram.
Lodgings?
Lodgings.
Let's go to the lodgings.
All right. We have to travel all the way back across the river. We're going this way.
We're going back to where she lives.
Yes. And there is a demonstration on this bridge. So we have to go to the next bridge and cross here.
What are they demonstrating?
I don't know. Just a lot of people with placards screaming. I don't want to get involved. It's something about politics. And then we go down here to the lodgings, which is F16. The Reynolds boarding house or whatever it was called. And what do we find? Well, the 3-story Clapper board house on Litch Street is neat and presentable. A small sign advertises that Rennie's boarding house has vacant rooms. Well, now they have.
Dark.
You are greeted at the front desk by one of the Rennie twins. Thomas.
Wait a minute.
Do you have something there?
There was a news article about twins.
Oh, there were 3
Yeah,
births.
last night saw the birth of twins for not just one family, but 3.
Oh.
Congrats to the Smiths, Baxters, and Ahos.
Huh.
So twins are abound in these lands.
Okay, that's also maybe...
It's very curious.
Yeah, some kind of omen stuff going on
Maybe
here.
they belong to a special lineage.
Yeah, but those are the Rennies, though.
Okay.
They're the owners of the boarding house.
Okay.
And Thomas is one of them. He's a friendly man in his 30s with a mop of dark hair. Are you wanting to rent a room? You describe the woman in the hospital who was attacked. I love this interaction. Like you walk into this boarding house and the receptionist says, so yes, what can I do for you? Are you looking to rent a room? And then you start describing some horrible wound that occurred on a woman just around the corner. That's how we are.
Yeah.
That's the kind of...
We have no filter.
That's the kind of Peter Cheney that we are.
Yeah.
You describe the woman in the hospital who was attacked, explaining that she had a receipt for payment for one of his rooms. Explain that, Thomas.
Please.
Well, that sounds very much like Martha Modine, he confirms the name.
Indeed.
She has been with us for over a year now. I believe she works over on Main Street in one of the stores. Now, Main Street, is that where the bookstore is? The bookstore where she got a book?
Yeah.
Is on Main Street.
It's on Main Street?
It's on Main Street, so she could have bought a book from the bookstore if she worked there, but maybe, I don't know.
She probably wouldn't have had a receipt and all that stuff.
It's a little weird.
Yeah.
But okay. She apparently works in one of the stores over there. I do hope she's okay. She's got a kind heart, always willing to do a kindness for a stranger.
Yes.
See, that's her fatal flaw. She's always willing to do a kindness for a stranger.
But Edward wasn't a stranger.
Not now. He used to be. She's smitten as well, having recently fallen in love with a man named Mr. Hartwell.
Edward Hartwell. Ah ha 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 ha.
Should we immediately, or do you want to check?
We're on to you, Mr. Hartwell.
Mr. Edward Hartwell. Does he have an address, or is he also one of those
Hartwell? There is an Hartwell E.
That's Edward Hartwell.
And there's a Hartwell M.
Where's Hartwell E located?
Hartwell E is at L26.
L26. Now, that's a little out of my reach. Or is it? Because L is down here.
L26.
L26.
We're on to you, Mr. Hartwell.
Yes, we are indeed. There it is.
Do not think you can escape us much longer.
So Edward Hartwell, he lives down here, also in the vicinity. Don't care for him too much.
He has the same premonitions.
Surly. Eyes makes my dogs bark every time he's around.
That's not a good sign.
And my dogs never bark. Clearly, young Martha can see redeeming qualities, I suppose. I think this is kind of confirming my story.
Sure.
You ask if you may see Martha's room, and he agrees.
Cool.
Wow. Striding past you, brandishing a passkey. Martha's room is modest, but well kept, and pleasantly decorated. On a small bookcase, there are several works of poetry. A photograph in a frame on the mantel catches your eye. You walk over and examine it. It is the picture of a lady and a gentleman, and there can be no doubt that this is the woman that Armitage described. And we have also seen her in the hospital now. The couple gazes lovingly at one another, with that faraway, dreamy look of a movie romance. The man has a small birthmark under his left eye.
Mr. Hartwell.
No. The person that was seen had a large birthmark under his right eye. This is a small birthmark under his left eye.
That's a red herring.
So, I think that takes care of it.
Good.
Thomas says, that's them, Martha and Hartwell. Though he looks as though butter wouldn't melt in his mouth, unlike her. What an expression. You look like butter wouldn't melt in your mouth. Is that also in the Shakespeare insult generator?
I think so. The Hartwell twins.
No.
Oh my God, Tatsavitri.
Oh, wow.
That could explain a thing or two. Because there do happen to be two Hartwells in the fucking directory. There's Hartwell M, Matthias perhaps, and there's Hartwell E.
Messiahs, did you say?
Yeah.
Messiah?
The Hartwell twins. Twins is a theme in these lands.
Yes. Yeah.
Birthmarks left and right.
If I had a pen, I would be writing behind my ear.
Okay, so I'm just saying.
Not bad. You asked for more information on Hartwell, and Rennie tells you that Hartwell has been seeing Martha for several weeks, and that he had a house on the lower south side on East Saltonstall Street. So is that... Yes. What we found in the directory is on East Saltonstall Street. So if I can just make a comment here, on just like a meta comment, one thing that is fantastic in the Sherlock Holmes Consultant Detective, and maybe also in this game, but I'm just pointing it out because there was like a tiny bit of the problems with it, is that this game, unlike if you play Choose Your Own Adventure, you go to a passage and then you have a choice between going to other paragraphs and you jump between them. So there's a hierarchy of places you can visit. You cannot go to a paragraph that is not an option. You cannot, if you're in paragraph 10 and it says you can go to 12 and 42, you cannot go to 52, or you can, but then you're not playing the game. In these games, the hierarchy is completely flat. You can visit any location, and you can visit locations, any sequence that you want, which potentially should be game-breaking, because you might enter a location that assumes that you have information that you don't have. And I think what just happened here, in a very light and forgivable way, is that this location confirmed that Martha is the woman that Armitage described. We've actually been to the hospital. We've seen Martha. So if this was a computer game, things would have been updated behind the scenes, so to speak, and we would be informed that she looks like the woman that you saw at the hospital.
There is only one reply for each location.
Exactly.
So we might know things that the game doesn't know that we know.
Yes. So, but generally that is one of the miracles of these types of game, that generally just works out really, really well. And you rarely have these non sequiturs. Here's a small one. It's all good.
Another thing that I would like to point out is that since Tatravitria made the guess that they might be twins, there's also a way of giving us a clue that's not mentioned anywhere. It's not a concrete clue.
It's your invisible bridge.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you just tell me where that other Hartwell lives?
Hartwell M. He lives on F66. Not 666, but F66.
But that's not too far away, right?
I didn't mention F is the sixth letter in the alphabet.
Oh, that is 666. Oh, that's. I mean.
So it has to be that guy.
It has to be that guy. No, let's jump to questions.
Yeah, we're ready. We solved it.
He lives over here.
Yeah, 666. The number of the beast.
I'm still trying to draw my imaginary pentagrams. But,
we'll get there. With enough points, you'll get there. anything is a pentagram if you just have enough points.
You just need 5 points, basically.
That's how data collection works.
Ooh.
So we have an ominous set of twins.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I love the idea of jumping straight to the twin.
Yeah, and just like we solved it.
Yeah, just show up at his door, just being so occult.
Yeah.
I do also like the idea of visiting Edward's home first, because we have basically been trying to track down Martha and Edward. We have now tracked down Martha. We know that she's been living there for a year. She must be from out of town, and that she is perhaps too good for her own good. And now we've also tracked down Edward's address.
And also, if we jump to conclusions now, I think that we would not be able to answer questions surrounding what actually took place.
We have no idea what the motive for anything is.
No. And we don't know physically what happened. You know, how did she become wounded? Who actually did it? We can guess at who's involved, but we don't know the motives. We don't know what actually occurred.
Yeah, I agree. And we've been told that Edward does have a birthmark, but it's in the wrong place. So Edward is not the tall, dark stranger who looked on at the crime scene.
But his brother might be.
That's if that is true, that is wonderful.
And also, is she able to distinguish between the two brothers?
Oh, I mean,
does she care about also birthmarks?
Your birthmark seems to be jumping around on your cheeks. Was it? No. You must be confused, Martha.
It could also be that the photograph is mirrored.
Oh, now you're saying something, or what? Are you?
I don't know if I'm saying something. If you understood ancient 1920s camera technology, would there ever be a situation where you would develop an image mirrored?
Okay.
Also, the policeman could be wrong. The policeman could have, he just saw him out the corner of his eye, tried to get his attention, he ran away. Maybe the policeman was wrong about the placement and the size of the birthmark.
I'm just gonna do a spoiler now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna spoil something from a 1936 crime game book.
No, don't do it.
It is the Malinsay Massacre by Dennis Wheatley.
Uh-huh.
In that dossier of information on this murder spree that took place at the Malinsay mansion, there is a photograph of someone in a button jacket and you know that you're looking for a left-handed guy, and you can see, if you look closely at, and this is not something that's described anywhere, you have to think this up while looking at the photograph. You look at the photograph and you'll see, well, this this coat, the way that it is buttoned, it must have been buttoned by a right-handed man. But double thinking should then lead you to suspect that, in fact, the image was reversed to confuse the observer. So actually, it was buttoned by a left-handed man. And those are the intricacies of the Malinsay Massacre of 1936. So we're not there, and I'm kind of happy we're not there, because we wouldn't get that clue.
But just saying, there could be something there.
Yeah.
But one birthmark was large, the other small, though.
Yes. That's another thing. There was a difference in size.
But that's what I'm saying. The policeman might have misjudged the size and the side of which cheek and so on and so forth.
Well,
he saw him
witness
at a
is unreliable.
Exactly. And also, Tatsevitra has expert knowledge here, saying that with paper reversal, you might be able to create a photograph that is mirrored. So all these things are possibilities that we have to take into account.
We may be taking this game to levels it didn't expect to be taken to.
We're solving crimes that weren't even mentioned by this game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it'll not be in the questions, but that's just because they're asking the wrong questions.
They're asking the wrong questions, man. You look deep into the conspiracy. Okay, so I think it's very...
Let's walk in the footsteps of Martha. Like she would go every morning down to visit her beloved Edward.
So, of course. Or is it Edward?
Or is it M. Hartwell?
M. Hartwell, Mr. M. So, I think we should visit the original Edward.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
And then keep this one in mind.
Yeah.
So,
Edward, you're not going to escape our clutches, the clutches of the law.
Peabody Street, all the way crossing East Pickman Street, and then turn into East Saltonstall Street. And right here at L26, gonna knock on the door of Edward. What do we expect to find? A distraught man? Or a crazy occultist?
Or he's not there at all.
Has he burned all his papers?
I think he's been missing since the crime.
That's also a very good possibility then.
So his manservant opens the door?
Yes? Do you think he has a manservant?
I think...
A young poet?
Young poet, maybe not. We'll see.
Okay. Edward, let's see here.
Edward Hartwell.
Edward Hartwell's home is average and unassuming. A cat draws your attention as you step forward to knock on the door.
So he's not a dog person, he's a cat person.
He's a cat person.
Is that a clue?
It could be. We can make it into one. The mangy feline is backing away from a basement window. Uh-oh, people who have basements. The poor creature's eyes are wide, and its back is arched, hair standing on end.
Not a good sign.
Hissing in the most fearsome way. I mean, we do know he's not a dog person, because the dogs at Martha's lodgings would bark at him.
Does his own cat is scared of him?
But I think a cat draws your attention as you step forward to knock on the door, and it looks scared. It's hissing, and it's backing away from a basement window. So something is going on in the basement of this building. You knock on the door, and when there is no reply, you knock again. As minutes tick by, you decide that a closer inspection of the rear of the property might be in order. After all, if his lady was injured, there is a chance that someone may have attempted to injure Edward Hartwell as well.
We haven't considered that, actually.
No. We do now. The yard at the back of the building is well tended, and the fence is new and painted. The back door is unlocked. Stealing inside quickly so you're not observed, you find yourself in a clean and tidy kitchen. The cutlery and plates are neatly washed and stacked on the drying board. The attention to tidiness continues in each room. A pile of mail addressed to Edward Hartwell sits on a small table near the front door. He hasn't been checking his mail recently. Remembering the cat, you discover a small cellar door in the kitchen.
Cellar door.
And head down into the basement, where a bare, flickering bulb illuminates a small workroom. Discarded under a workbench is a small, broken packing crate stamped with the Miskatonic Museum's address. Newspaper alert.
Newspaper alert.
What's with the museum? Because I remember something's going on in the museum.
Theft delays new exhibition. The much anticipated new series of exhibitions at the University Exhibit Museum. Is that the one?
What did you try to say again?
The much anticipated new series of exhibitions at the University Exhibit Museum.
Yes, that must be the Miskatonic Museum.
Yeah. Has been delayed until next week due to an unforeseen problem with a missing artifact. Dr. Robert Gladding, junior curator at the museum, spoke to our reporter yesterday. He confirmed that at least one of the new artifacts on loan from the Boston Heritage Center has disappeared.
Okay, so there's an artifact from Boston that has gone missing.
At first, it was suspected that the artifact had been misplaced, but on extra examination of the entire consignment from Boston, the police were notified. Gladding said, although theft is unlikely, as the artifact in question has little value, perhaps a silver medallion?
Ooh.
We cannot rule it out at this time. Theft, that is. The investigation continues, and now work is underway to change the exhibit in order to compensate for the missing items.
And what has that been delayed? Was that the exhibition?
The exhibition is delayed.
But there's also something else going on in the museum. There's a competition.
The curator from the Boston Museum, Mr. Bostonian academic, arrives in Arkham. Mr. Victor Ingram is scheduled to arrive in Arkham any day now. A senior curator from the Boston Museum, Victor Ingram, is scheduled to visit the Miskatonic Exhibit Museum. Whilst in town, he's due to judge the exhibit competition between the junior curators of our museum. To the curator with the best exhibit goes the honor of taking the vacant role of senior curator, and it is expected that the competition will be fierce. Could it be that there is a competition that Mr. Hartwell is eager to win?
He may, if he is interested in the occult or the ancient, the antiquities and stuff, he may be trying to get the post as senior curator by winning an exhibition. So he may have, or is it just that because there is this thing going on, that he knows the true value of the seemingly valueless artifact that was sent from Boston?
It could either he is trying to sabotage the competition by stealing away their artifacts.
Yes.
Or he himself is trying to gather artifacts for his own exhibition.
Yes.
But we do not know what his job title is. Is he a junior curator at the museum?
I don't know. Let's read on and
find
out.
So a lot is afoot here.
We know that discarded under a workbench is a small broken packing crate stamped with the Miskatonic Museum's address. A small broken packing crate. It sounds like something that's larger than containing a silver medallion, but we don't know. On the bench lies a wickedly sharp, straight-bladed dagger etched with unusual symbols on its wooden hilt. That's probably what was inside that box. The razor-sharp blade reveals flecks of red stain.
Oh
Next to the dagger is a bowl, also stained dark red.
A bone?
Bowl.
Oh, okay. A bowl.
Someone's been stabbed and their blood has been drained into a bowl. And he has a girlfriend with an open chest wound. Edward.
Edward. What was on your mind?
Your stomach lurches at the uncomfortable thought that these are the implements that injured the woman at the hospital. A few pieces of old parchment with indecipherable, crabbed handwriting lie scattered nearby. Placed next to the parchment is an open wooden box containing 4 large grain seeds.
The grain of evil.
A grain of evil is the title of the case. Each is about the length of your fingernail and jet black. Leaving everything as you found it, you exit the property the way you came. And then there is errata.
Yes.
Something is missing.
Okay.
So we now have to go to the print and play edition to see if it has that errata included or whether we just have to do without this information.
I'm having so many ideas right now.
Let us just check this and then blurt it all out.
Yes.
And this was again L26. So now we are turning to the print and play first edition in a desperate attempt to find errata for the published edition. It should be the other way around, but it's not.
Great job, guys.
Great jobs. Yes, here it is. It is a note. It looks like that down there in the bottom left corner. And it says, Edward, I'm glad it all went as we planned. I will arrive in town Sunday by train and meet you at B's. Sorry guys, I need my...
Bill?
Yeah, that's what I was hoping for. And meet you at B's Diner. I will collect
Not Bill, Diner?
B's. But
Okay.
it could be a mistake. I don't know. I will collect it from you there. Be sure it is kept warm.
The blood?
I don't know. Signed
The grain?
V.
Victor Ingram? Professor of the Boston Museum? Supposed to arrive any day now?
He says, I will arrive Sunday. Today is Sunday.
Yes.
He's arriving today, but I mean, I think...
Oh my God, we've blown this case wide open.
Stuff is happening in chat as well.
Tatsevitra has already called it. He's clearly a thief. We're reading the newspaper from today, yes. The same newspaper we've been reading all along. The beating heart of your girlfriend, perhaps, should be kept warm.
But she hasn't had her heart removed.
Luckily, no.
No.
But
he has drawn blood from her, perhaps.
Yes.
He has drawn blood from somebody, it seems. And if V is the curator who sent something down on loan from Boston, I mean, it would really be interesting to know if Ed is in this competition. Perhaps that can be found out by visiting the
university,
museum.
the museum. And also the grains. Is that meant to? Is that seeds?
Yeah, that sprout in blood or something.
They sprout in blood. They may sprout in your chest.
Ooh.
They may be the seeds of trees that come alive.
The grain of evil that he inserted into the heart of a pure-hearted woman.
Yes, naturally.
Edward was tasked with finding the purest of heart in all of Arkham and plant a grain of evil in her to, I don't know, see what would develop or see that, you know, the evil needs innocence to blossom.
Obviously.
Wow.
This is dark shit.
This is really dark shit. It's much darker than expected. And I mean, even though it's grim, it's also, wouldn't say exactly subtle, but somehow it is subtle, I think. I mean, we still don't have tentacles reaching out of floorboards.
And I also like that so far, this has been it seems to be the crime of man, not the crime of some beast.
Yes, that's true. They may be trying to
invoke
something.
Yeah, but in so far they've only managed to hurt each other. Sinister indeed.
Sinister indeed.
So are the grains supposed to be kept warm, as in you insert them into a human body? Are the blood that he has drawn from Martha, is that what's supposed to be kept warm?
Also, we need to find out, is there a B's Diner?
B's.
Or is it just a misspelling? Or did the name B change to Bill in 2nd edition? Which would be
so we have a meta puzzle to solve.
We may have a meta puzzle to solve. But can we look in the directory and see if there's a B's Diner?
Yeah. Let's check it out. Meet at B's Diner.
Meet. Let's have meet at B's Diner.
Diners. We have B's Diner.
Is there?
It's there.
And it's not Bill's.
It's D9.
Okay, D9 you say.
So I expect to meet Victor Ingram from the Boston Museum. And perhaps also Edward.
You said D9?
D9.
Where is that? That's up here. I need to stand.
We've blown this case wide open. So either, but we don't know exactly the specifics of what's been going on, because a ritual may have taken place, may have been about to take place. We don't know. We don't know if Edward succeeded in whatever sinister plot he was undertaking, or if it was thwarted by Martha escaping.
I mean,
but seeing as though Martha has her smashing blouse, she's wearing her smashing blouse, so perhaps they have completed the ritual, buttoned her blouse up, and sent her on her merry way.
And then the seed sprouted in the middle of the street, basically.
Yeah.
They didn't know what was going to happen.
For how long has she been carrying around that wound?
So, okay, so there is a competition at the university. An artifact has been sent from Boston University.
And has not gone missing.
Artifact has gone missing. We assume now that Edward has stolen the artifact on the instructions of a guy called V,
yes,
which may be the curator from Boston Museum. And then he's given it to V, and V is the one, because the knife and the blood is in Edward's apartment, but Edward hasn't been home for a while. But he's instructed to give it to V and to keep it warm. So
did Victor or V set up this whole chain of events? Edward, you have to draw the blood, you have to plant the seed, or whatever the specifics were. You have to do the ritual, and then meet me on Sunday, where you will deliver to me whatever the fruit of his labor is.
It may be that if we go to B's Diner and we're right on time, then we'll catch them in the act. And it may also be that the competition at the university was basically just a kind of cover for their whole operation. This is the chance, but it's because
he has an alibi.
Because, okay, if it's this dagger that was sent down, V couldn't steal the dagger himself because he's working at the Boston Museum. It's too obvious. But if the item is sent to Arkham and he gets someone else to steal it, and he knows that with this dagger, for some reason you have to use this dagger to draw the blood of a good-hearted woman, and then you put the seed in the blood and it sprouts, or he's put the seed in her, or whatever.
Something very organic about this.
I also want to know just where Miskatonic, the university.
Yeah, where is the university?
Is.
Yeah. Tatridris says, do the horrible killing and then we meet for brunch. How was Edward persuaded? It's a great question. Perhaps because he's a junior curator that wants to climb up the ranks at the university. Also, do we know anything about Nyarlathotep?
No, we haven't heard that name before. Maybe Pascali knows something.
Wasn't that the name that was inscribed at the ritual site?
Yes.
So we have to visit Pascali, the occultist, to learn more. But I do think that the diner is our hottest lead right now.
Absolutely. But it would also be really nice to know what is Edward's connection to the university exhibition museum. But I don't know exactly how to find it here.
Tatsuridra has some knowledge here.
Yes.
Climbing the ranks seemed like a lot of effort for a small reward. Curators I know are less ambitious. Yeah, you might be right, Tatsuridra.
Yeah, but you know. But this is the new world. You're living in the old world. So there is a Miskatonic University is basically all of C, but interestingly, I don't see any museums listed.
It's
There are no
called...
museums in town. Or do we have a museum on our ally list, perhaps?
What do they call it here? Yeah, maybe.
Arkham Historical Society. No.
Yeah, just museum. What was it called? The packaging that we discovered. What was it? Who was it sent to?
It was...
The Miskatonic Exhibit Museum.
Yeah. Miskatonic Museum address. But as far as I can see, the directory does not contain any information on the Miskatonic Museum. Clubs, stores, transportation. There is an entry called University Miskatonic, and it has various sort of science annex, memorial, bell tower, administration building, all these different things, but nothing that sounds like it's a museum, unless it's in the library, but I don't know whether that would be the case. But perhaps the point is not to visit the museum. Perhaps the point is
I want to
visit the
Bee's Diner.
The Bee's Diner.
That's what I want to visit anyway, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, here it is. It's listed under U instead.
Oh.
University Exhibit Museum C24. I'm just going to circle that one.
Okay.
It's over here.
Edward. What's going on in your life, Edward?
Right across from the hospital is basically the museum.
And very close to the crime scene. And very close to the ritual site.
Everything seems to be close here in Arkham. It's a small town.
South side of town.
Right.
So Bee's Diner, where is that?
It is up there. Is that what we do?
Yes. And we have to go. We have to go while the iron is hot here.
Yes. We're gonna
catch him in the act. Yes.
We're very lucky if we do, I'll say.
Yeah.
Because of time. But D9. Let's do this. And let's...
D9 is...
Yeah, it's all the way up there. Okay, D9. It looks as though you missed the action by the time you arrive at Bee's Diner.
Damn it!
A police wagon pulls away as you turn the corner. You spot Inspector Garrison standing with several uniformed officers inside the diner.
Were we too late?
The detective greets you with a nod. We got him, thanks to the tip from Armitage. Edward Hartwell matches the description of the man that Keene saw fleeing the scene of the attack last night. I placed Edward under arrest, but he wasn't being particularly cooperative, and things got violent. That said, I think that he's gonna end up in the sanatorium, to be sure. The nonsense he was babbling, the overturned chairs and smashed crockery scattered around the diner tell the tale of his arrest. You ask if Hartwell had anything suspicious in his possession. Perhaps. He came in the diner with a small package, according to a waitress. But he met a man who called himself Victor, and gave the package to that gentleman. The waitress overheard Hartwell's companion saying that he had to rush off so that he didn't miss his train. Garrison appears upset that Hartwell's contact evaded capture. My jurisdiction ends at the city limits. That package is someone else's concern now. With a twinkle in Garrison's eye, suggesting he's intending to follow the man with the package, he tips his hat and turns to speak with one of his officers. You realize that Garrison wouldn't leave a loose end like that to chance. So he's working across city limits, I think.
Okay, yeah.
And we have a note here, and this is the note, and it says, Edward, I am glad it all went as we planned.
Ooh.
Oh, it's the same note from before.
Oh, okay.
I'll arrive in town Sunday by train and meet you at Bee's Diner. I will collect it from you there to be sure it is kept warm. It's always this kept warm.
So the case is closed in a way.
Well, only the case about the missing artifact. We have no idea. No one knows, I think, that Edward has hurt Martha.
No, you're right. He didn't mention that.
that's something that we suspect because we found the knife at Edward's place.
Yeah. So we are still tasked with finding out what happened to Martha.
I think we're in the end stages.
But Edward is heavily incriminated by this point.
I think we should give ourselves just a few more locations to visit.
Yes.
And then we should turn to questions. Because I think, as often happens in these games, you end up going to so many places to look for the answer and it's not there.
Yeah.
You have to think it out.
Yeah.
But we still haven't visited Pascali.
We need to visit Pascali because he's the only one who may know about this ritual and what it entails.
Yeah, because we really don't know how it was conducted and what was the point. And perhaps we also have to even visit the park or something. I don't know.
And who knows if Edward's twin brother is involved, if he even has a twin brother.
We almost just have to do that.
Yeah.
Just because.
Yeah. We have loose ends.
Yeah, we have loose ends.
And also we can't account for the actual crime.
No, and we need to be able to do that. We need to be able to answer the question, what happened to Martha?
Yes. We can with a high degree of certainty say who did it.
Yeah.
Who has a motive.
Perhaps something can be clear also by visiting the University Museum to find out if Edward was a junior a curator there. That would explain something.
So we don't know exactly how are these seeds or grains supposed to be used in this ritual that Edward may or may not have been a part of, but we do believe he has been a part of it.
Yeah.
And when he was supposed to deliver the package to Victor, we don't know if the package is the blood or it's the seeds or both.
That's true.
Or the grains, sorry.
Yeah. And
so and where we are now is Edward has just been arrested because we unraveled his theft of the ritualistic dagger from the university, and so he was caught. But that still does not explain what happened to Martha.
No, and there is some weird subplot about a competition at the Miskatonic Exhibition Museum where junior curators are competing to make the best exhibit in order to become senior curators. So there may have been, and that may have been used as a cover-up for sending an artifact from Boston to Arkham, which was then stolen and used for this ritual act. So what we're considering right now is visiting the University Museum and also visiting one of our informants, Pascali, who is an occultist.
And that's what Tatsevitra is talking about here. You do know that a ritual was made to a certain god. Perhaps the library has information. Yes, and specifically Pasquale Fenton. He's an occult student and practitioner with extensive knowledge of the great old ones. So there was, when we visited the ritualistic room, or the ritual room, there was inscribed in the walls the name of an ancient god, we assume.
Yeah.
So it would be pertinent to go visit Pascali and see what he knows about this.
Yeah. I think as Tatsevitra points out, there is also the librarian at Orn Library who assists with research and access to restricted library materials, as well as a professor, another professor, let me just find her, Leonore Robinson, who's an expert on oral history and folklore. But, so the question is this just sounds more occult than folklore.
Definitely.
I mean, there's probably an overlap, but still.
I think the occultist is that's the closest one right now, I think.
And Tatsevitra says, "Hello, welcome to my ritualistic room. I'm a criminologist."
More exposition, please.
Let's have more exposition. I feel that we're both very hot on Pasquale or whatever his name is.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Our friend with the unpronounceable name.
What other areas were we considered visiting?
We were still considering visiting Inspector Garrison, but we just met him at B's Diner.
Yeah.
And it seems that I'm not sure that he can help us much more.
No.
We're also considering visiting the crime scene in order to perhaps find out something about trees coming alive, because the crime scene was right outside a park.
But I do feel like visiting the police or the crime scene is starting over on a new direction.
Yeah, I agree. I also think that we already have the information, or we have more pertinent information.
Yeah.
Then we have like a completely weird off-the-cuff clue, which is that there is a theme about twin births.
Yes.
And there is not just one Hartwell in town, Edward Hartwell, who is raving mad and has been arrested up at the Bee Cafe and is now potentially going to Arkham Sanatorium.
I wonder if Arkham even has a regular prison, or do they only have a sanatorium? Going straight to the sanatorium. No trial
That's how
needed.
they do it. But there isn't in the yellow pages of Arkham, which is a thing in this game, says that there is another Hartwell living out here. It may be Edward's father. But
no, he's not living there. He's living in M something.
Oh, okay. Good that you mentioned that. But there is another Hartwell living in town, and there is some kind of confusion between.
No, you're right. F66. So 666.
666, right here. And there is some confusion about a birthmark, because Edward has a small birthmark under his left eye, but a mysterious person that was seen overlooking the crime when Martha, she collapsed, one of the bystanders, he had a big birthmark under his right eye. So that seems to be, to me, that there may be some red herring here. That we're supposed to think that, oh, birthmark, that's Edward. But you have to pay attention to details. So Edward is not the onlooker. But also, why would Edward be an onlooker to Martha collapsing in the street? I don't think he's that cold-hearted, right? Or is he? I mean, okay, if he cut open her chest, I would say he is.
At least he facilitated the dagger to be used for the ritual.
Yeah.
So maybe it could also be that his twin brother is sort of the ritual cult leader.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that whatever we do, we have to visit the location with his potential relative.
Also because his address is F66.
Which is...
You can't have a more evil address.
It is the most evil address in Arkham, in the whole of Arkham.
If that's not a clue, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I don't know either.
So should we start with visiting the occultist Pasquale?
Let's do that.
Edward, the twin, two sides of same coin,
Occult folklore.
Two sides of same coin.
Yeah. I don't disagree.
But Pasquale, where does he live?
He lives in L4.
L4.
Which is down in this area.
Yeah.
So we can move our counter down to L4, which is somewhere around there. Okay. Let's see what Pasquale has to say. Armitage, Professor Armitage, who we are basically working for, who is our mentor, has little good to say about the odious little man that is Pasquale Fenton, Arkham's most celebrated occultist. He and Armitage have had a lifelong rivalry. Too much the showman, and some might argue, charlatan for most tastes. However, Pasquale manages to make an impressive living. His mansion is tawdry and garish, decorated with a vast collection of the occult, including deformities in jars, unusual medical devices, and jewelry that evokes satanic ritual.
Wow.
He invites you in cordially enough, but the smirk that appears on his arrogant face when he learns the reason behind your call raises his hackles. Oh, so now I'm consulted on this matter? I would have thought that bumbling idiot Garrison would have come himself rather than sending his protege. Biting your tongue, you explain the wound on the young lady and why the police would be concerned. Pasquale realizes he's being a bit nasty and changes his tone. Trees? She went on about being attacked by trees, did she? I would suggest that you have stumbled upon cultist of Shop Nicorath, also known as the Black Goat with 1,000 young.
Of course.
Black Goat, Black Seed. There are mutterings of certain dark rituals that, well, her followers use a sacrificial victim to host the spawn from the unholy seed to infant. The wound on this woman may be that, or maybe she's just insane. the mad abound in Arkham, as I know you have heard from stories. But that would be a better guess. Pasquale pauses and you encourage him to tell you more about Shub-Niggurath.
Yes, please.
He's a bit reluctant to share his knowledge, but continues. A spawn of Shub-Niggurath is sliced free from the flesh of the host and brought into this world to wreak whatever horrors it may. Investigate the witch cults in Arkham if you truly want to go down this path. Maybe folklore. It very well may be that the lady who was attacked is delusional from some poison, or she made it all up altogether. Maybe.
The hole in her chest suggests otherwise.
Yeah. You ask what the spawn is likely to do if indeed it has been born into the world. Pasquale bites his lower lip. For now, the spawn will take a number of years to fully mature. The texts speak of these creatures often attacking domesticated animals, particularly dogs and cats. Even in seed form, the animals can sense their evil presence.
Oh my god, that explains so much.
With this, you thank Pasquale for his insights and leave.
So the spawn is what is kept warm.
Yes.
He's delivering the demon spawn to Victor at the diner.
And he already had the black seed in his pocket when he visited Martha at her lodgings, and that is why the dogs barked at him.
Yes.
And the cats are hissing outside his basement window because that's where he keeps the rest of the seeds.
Yes. So why weren't they barking at Martha, though? If she was carrying the seed within.
No. He came to visit her, to take her to where the ritual was supposed to take place, and he was carrying the seeds.
No, but I'm saying that she has been carrying the seed for a while, sort of what do you call it, as an embryo inside her chest, because that's what's been cut out of her chest. That's what the devil spawn is. What was supposed to be kept warm. The devil spawn is what he delivered to Victor.
But we don't know how long. That's
the incubation period.
No, we don't know. So her followers use a sacrificial victim to host the spawn from unholy seed to infant. Yeah, that does point to the seed being
and
there.
We were talking about earlier that something came from within, like a chest burster.
It has to be that.
So she was a host.
She was a host.
Incubating the demon spawn within her chest.
And Pasquale cut it out and delivered it to Victor.
Edward cut
it out to deliver it to Victor. And what did he get in return? Is he so ambitious that what he got in return was this item that he could use to win the exhibition, the competition?
Perhaps there was a trade of items, or perhaps it was just... But the Victor, the professor from Boston, he was going to leave the same day anyway, not judging the competition anyway. He was supposed to be the judge in the competition.
So that was all a setup.
It was all a setup. It was all sort of a alibi or whatever it was.
Yeah, so he's not involved in the... I'm just trying to think, what is Edward's alibi here?
Well, Edward stole the
What is he
seeds
getting out of it? Because he's just thanking him. Is he just a member of this occult society?
He's a low-ranking member, perhaps? Under the command of Victor, who is like the evil cult leader.
Maybe.
Tazavita says, well, I guess lots of stuff happened in a... Wait, wasn't the ritual in the Emperor House something about Nyarlathotep and not Shub-Niggurath?
Yes, and I think that may be a red herring, because that ritual never started. Because the candles were unlit in the pentagram.
Yeah.
I think that's... I think
it's a red herring.
I mean, there's so many occult things going on in Arkham, and we can't deal with them all.
No. So that's a red herring. That's fine. But since she has a huge hole in her chest, broken ribs, it's not to plant a seed, it's to take out. Yeah.
So that seed, he has fed her that seed earlier.
Yeah.
And he's just watched it grow.
Yes.
And you're quite right that it's very strange that the dogs have not been barking at Martha if she has been carrying that seed for a while.
Yeah.
And she's been living there for a year.
Yeah.
So it may not be important, but I would really like to visit the museum to find out if there is a connection, because I just wonder, like, how was Edward able to steal it from the museum? Is he somehow connected to it? Or could he have like a second alibi? Does his way into this cult have to do with objects that he have access to at the museum? Or
we do have to visit his twin brother. If it is indeed his twin brother.
Absolutely. But perhaps that is the last thing we visit and then we answer all the questions?
Yes. Do you want to start at the museum?
I really would like to visit the museum.
I just want to see if there's anything now with all these new things that come to light. If there's anything.
I mean, Pasquale, he also said that looking into witch cults might be a thing. But I think, again, that it's more background information.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to move the case forward.
Yeah.
There's something about people drinking moonshine and dying from it.
Yeah.
That's not it. But they did drink a gallon. That's a lot. And then there's a dance event that was a great success. New road signs. Also important. I'm going to show you some advertising while Anders looks at the paper.
No. We've been through it all, I think. We've been through it all. There's some personal ads, but it doesn't link up with any names that we know about.
Yeah, here I noticed under properties, there is actually a small reference saying, would the owners of the Emperor Manse be sure to secure the property, as workers from the hospital recently have seen lights in the 3rd floor of the building.
Yeah.
But I think that maybe, this is one case out of 8, so maybe this is also something that is really preempting a later case that will maybe appear in the Hopeless Stream.
A teaser. Let's go to the university. Let's get to the bottom of this.
Let's get to the bottom of this museum business. It's over here at C24. And let's find out, because we don't know what Edward even does, right?
No.
We know he likes poetry, and we know she bought him a book of Coleridge's poems.
Yeah.
But we don't really know a whole lot about him. We know very little, actually. The University Exhibit Museum is closed, so the iron-studded doors are fastened tight. On a hunch, you head around the side of the building to the loading dock. Ooh. There are several workers and a policeman lingering on the dock.
Okay.
The policeman is taking statements from 2 men dressed as watchmen.
They are investigating the missing museum piece.
To one side, nervously pacing, is an academic type in a dust-covered suit. You approach the academic, who introduces himself as Dr. Robert Gladding, a junior curator with the museum. He was also the one that was mentioned as saying that an item had gone missing, but he didn't believe it was a theft.
He's called Robert Jr.?
No, he's called Robert Gladding.
Okay.
I think he's there.
Robert Gladding, junior curator at the museum, spoke to our reporter yesterday. He confirmed that at least one of the new artifacts on loan from the Boston Heritage Center has disappeared. But he's also the one, yes.
So he must also be part of the competition, because it's the junior curators who are competing.
Yeah.
So
the police were notified. Gladding said, although theft is unlikely, as the artifact in question has little value, we cannot rule it out at this time that it's been stolen. Yeah.
But he says he's pacing around nervously.
So maybe he's been telling a lie to the press.
I can't believe this has happened. This exhibit was going to be the thing that secured me the job of senior curator. Now Richard is to get the post for sure.
Richard Edward?
Richard Edward?
Richard? Is there something about Edward and Richard? No.
No, I don't think so.
No, okay.
And we don't know any Richard, right?
No. I don't think so.
Oh, here comes it. As he wrings his hands, you learn that both he and Richard Jetry, the other junior curator, have been competing for the vacancy of a senior position. Both were given exhibits to display. A well-respected curator is arriving from Boston to present the board with his opinion as to which man should be promoted. Who would steal a 12th century ritual bowl? Except someone wishing to sabotage my exhibit. It's not worth anything to anyone despite its age. There were very few people who even knew of the bowl's arrival. Just the university museum staff and the staff of Rare Books and Maps.
Was that where she bought the poem book? No?
That was Meredith's books. What will Mr. Ingram think? Yeah, what will he think? I'd better send a message over to the Bancroft Arms to let him know. With that, gladding Horace away. Okay, so Edward is not involved.
But what did you say one of the names were? The Richard what?
Gentry.
There is a personal ad here.
Okay.
This is LP. It must not happen again. Down and RJ, Richard Jetting, know what this means. LP.
LP, it must not happen again?
LP, it must not happen again. Down and RJ, know what this means.
Down. Must not happen again.
Doesn't really necessarily say anything other than.
But it, I mean.
Someone is colliding, like, colluding here.
Yeah, but the thing is that Victor Ingram. He says to Edward, you know, I'm glad it all went as planned. I'll arrive in train and I'll collect it. So Victor has instructed Edward to steal
the bowl.
The bowl, right? And the dagger, maybe.
Yeah. And so the bowl, is that to carry the spawn?
Yeah, no, because the bowl was in his apartment. So that was maybe just when he cut out spawn, or you place the seed in the bowl and then someone ingest it, or...
Yeah.
Not completely clear.
Yeah, didn't hear the entire story, but you mentioned she had a shirt on and had an open wound. Would someone have put the medallion inside her body as part of some sort of ritual? Was her body did her body go through an autopsy, or have we moved on from rituals? Seems either a signal of love or ritual to put on her shirt back on. That's true. And it's actually the shirt, the whole shirt business. It's kind of weird because...
But I think it was not put back on. I think what we've discovered is that she was carrying a seed for a long time and something grew inside her. And one day as she was walking down the street, completely accidentally, it burst from her chest. And some member of the cult, or maybe Edward, if this thing about the birthmark is just like an unreliable witness, not recognizing probably where the birthmark was, sees her collapse in the street, and at the moment she does that, they take the spawn from her and deliver it to Victor, right? But how can they know when the spawn...
How can they know when it will spawn? Because that same day, she has been going about her business. She had been delivering food to the homeless. She may have also been visiting a cafe. Maybe not the same day. She had bought a book for Edward as a present. You're right. The thing about the shirt is actually a good point. No, it's a good point because it wasn't a stab wound, it turned out.
But if it was so accidental, then who would have known?
Were they always following her?
Well,
and why was she there? Why was she at this location? Because usually she's keeping to the same little circle.
But also we don't know what the incubation period is. No. We don't know if Edward conducted the ritual on the evening or earlier in the day, and then they kept a watch on her and it burst forth. Because in her rambling, but when she rambles and they are saying, and she's saying, stop it, it hurts. Stop it, Edward. I think there is a intended ambiguity making us perhaps think that she's asking Edward to stop somebody else from doing something. But it is actually Edward who has just been close to her, and now he knows that the seed is big, the spawn is big enough that he can cut it out.
Yeah.
But then he cuts it out, and then he puts her shirt back on.
But I don't think he cuts it out. I think since her ribs are broken.
Yeah.
And there's brown mucus and stuff.
But did he just give her that seed and then he knew within 3 days it'll burst out?
He was seeing her every day on the excuse that they were lovers.
Yeah.
Because they were hanging out anyway.
But he's such a cold-hearted.
It grows out of her.
Edward is now in custody and maybe on his way to the sanatorium. I don't think we can get to him.
What is... So Victor was not interested in the bowl, but the bowl was, however, an item that Edward needed in order to carry out this ritual somehow.
Yes.
So what he delivered to Victor was not the bowl or the dagger.
I think the bowl must be part of preparing the seed.
Yes.
You need some blood, which may have come from a completely different source. And then perhaps he has to, I don't know, have Martha drink it by putting something in her drink, or...
Makes sense that if you want to sprout a new plant, you put it in some water on a small glass of dirt or something, and then you can plant it. So maybe you put in a small bowl, ritualistic bowl, with some blood.
They were in the bakery. He put the bloodied seed into a cake and said, like, have you tried this new taste? It's kind of exotic, but once you get used to it, it's actually really nice.
Yeah. Don't chew too hard. It was his twin, and in her situation, Martha never realized. But the twin is also something we need to investigate. The twin.
Okay, so
are we there yet?
The thing is, I think.
Where else do we go? What else do we have? What did the university guy reveal actually?
Well, I think it didn't reveal much. It was perhaps as expected. Edward doesn't have a connection to it, I think.
No.
I think he just
stole it.
He just stole it, I think. Yeah. But then again, he received it in a package.
No,
but that was because
he didn't receive it.
He intercepted the package.
He intercepted the package. So maybe
he may be a mailman.
He maybe works at the post office.
Yeah. But that's not important to find out right now.
No, it doesn't matter how he got it, actually. More his intention with it is more interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think the weirdest thing we can do is to try to go to F66.
Yes.
And because I also think we're at a point where we're not getting much more information.
No, and I don't want to start over. I don't want to go back to the police. I don't want to go back and sort of retrace our steps.
No, I think we know what we know, and then also depending on the questions, we'll find out how tricky they are.
Yeah, and we might not be able to answer all questions. Let's see what happens when we go to Hartwell M.
Okay, so we were just here at the university, and we discovered that there is indeed this competition going on, and that's basically just a smokescreen for what's been happening.
And just to let you know what's going on now, we have suspected Edward, the lover of Martha, for, of course we suspected him as the...
when I heard his name, I knew he was suspicious.
You instantly knew. But what's very, very curious about Edward Hartwell is that next to his name in the phone book, there is a Hartwell M. Supposedly his twin, because there is a theme of twins in this town.
It could also be his mother or his father.
Could also be his mother or father. Well, we'll find out. Because we are so intrigued by this. The address is F66. So, 666, basically.
666. And
so we have to visit this guy.
On East Church Street.
Because what goes on at that address?
Right next to this horrifying creature. Okay, there may not even be an entry for this, because that's also how this game works, right?
Sure.
Let's see. F66. It would be fun, though. There is an entry.
Nice.
This property is owned by Matilda Hartwell.
A female twin.
But she's clearly not the person you seek. The frail old lady angrily waves you away, gesturing at a sign indicating that she does not receive door-to-door salesmen. Get out of here! Scam! Shyster! You sold me 3 encyclopedia sets. Some good they do me, what with my eyes and all.
Damn it!
And then we're sent on our way. But it's good to end in a blind alley.
Yes. That means we've been thorough, at least in our own direction.
Yeah.
We've gone down the path that we went down. We've gotten the clues that we could gather. I think we have part of a plan, part of a story.
And there may be other things. We know there are also suspicious thing happening on this island out in the river. We didn't investigate the mucus from the wound. Is that a very bad thing not to do?
No. I mean, if demon spawn bursts out of your chest, there's going to be mucus.
Yeah.
Everyone knows.
Yeah, and they're not going to be able to say it's demon spawn mucus anyway.
No, I think we are still perhaps a little bit vague surrounding
Edward's motive, and I think Edward's background is murky.
Yeah.
He may be a member of some kind of secret society or cult.
I think we can answer that Edward did it.
I mean, it could be. I mean, there is this one cult in town called the Silver Twilight, the Order of the Silver Twilight, right? Where we have Sebastian Lyman, who is a mole that is planted there by Professor Armitage to gather information on its leader, Carl Sanford. So we don't know if there's some kind of bigger cultish thing going on, but it just seems that this is more something that's been arranged between Victor Ingram and Edward Hartwell.
Yeah.
We don't have any indication.
No one else has been named in relation to this.
I'm even starting to think that tall person with the birthmark in the crowd may have been Edward.
Yeah.
And that it's just because, things happen quickly, and was it a large or a small birthmark? Was it under the left or the right eye?
I mean, we could go to the police.
You feel like it? Backtracking?
That's backtracking. It does actually say here on the newspaper.
Okay.
Thought of the day. Do not waver or slide back 2 paces with 1 step forward.
No, then we shouldn't.
Yeah. So let's bring on the questions. Right?
All right. I think so.
I think so.
I think we're just trying to cover bases that we don't have. We've already spent we've visited many locations.
Yeah.
I haven't counted,
No.
but we probably visited at least 10, right?
Yeah. That should
12.
be enough. And if each takes, half an hour to visit?
No. Like we visit 3 a day.
3 a day. So
we already spent like several days, 4 or 5 days.
And Victor Ingram is long gone with the artifact. Or
with the spawn, I think.
Devil spawn. I think we're ready to answer questions, and we might not be able to answer all of them, but
all right, guys.
I'm also curious to see what the questions are.
Yeah. So I'm gonna read questions, and please feel free to weigh in.
Yes,
on
please.
Chat. This is not about high scores. This is just about let's try to see how good we are at guessing.
So definitely, if you have any ideas that can help, or backseating is totally allowed. So just let us know if you have thought of something that we didn't that didn't occur to us.
Yeah. Okay. So wow, there are 12 questions.
That's a lot.
So can we take notes?
First, we need something to write with.
Do you have a pen?
I can use the back of this one.
Maybe I have a pen.
Yep. Question and answer time.
Okay. Maybe this one works.
12 questions.
Okay. So, what is the name of the woman who collapsed in the street?
Martha Modine.
Martha Modine. We discovered that by visiting her lodgings, or no,
the cafe.
the cafe.
Initially.
Yeah.
But it was confirmed later.
Yeah. So that's right. Number 2. Who was the suspicious character that made a quick exit from the scene of the crime?
You're gonna have to guess Edward.
We don't have any other guesses.
No.
Nyarlathotep, but I don't think so.
So Edward
Is number 2.
Edward
Hartwell.
Hartwell, yeah.
Yeah, and then somebody just mistook the placement of his birthmark.
Yeah.
3. How did the woman come by her injury?
She was
Spawn of Shub-Niggurath bursted from her chest?
Yeah. Spawn burst.
Yeah, spawn burst. We don't believe it was cut out, right? We believe.
No, I think it was a spawn burst, and you could say that Edward planted the seed that would later become the spawn.
But maybe that's another question. 4. What is the danger in the park? We didn't visit the park.
We didn't visit the park.
I guess the danger in the park would be living trees or Shub-Niggurath spawned. Perhaps they are planting seeds in the park. No. Wait. Why did it have 4 seeds?
No, but it has to be planted within someone, right? Wasn't it the part of the...
Yeah, Tatsavitra says living trees. I think that's a good answer because I think the danger is probably like Shub-Niggurath trees, living trees, demon trees.
We say living trees.
Yeah.
Right?
The danger in the park is living trees is also kind of funny. Don't go to the park. The trees are alive.
That's why I don't go out much.
Scare those trees. 5. What was stolen from the museum?
A ritualistic dagger and a ritualistic cup.
We know that a bowl was stolen. We don't know that a dagger, but I think a dagger was also.
We say bowl / dagger.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that at least the bowl was stolen. Homeless people in parks. Okay.
Number 6. Who is the out-of-town cultist of Shub-Niggurath?
Victor Ingram.
Victor Ingram from the Boston Museum. I think it's going pretty well.
It's better than expected.
Yeah.
We might have a few of these wrong, but I don't care.
I think we're doing pretty well. Number 7. Why did the cat hiss at the wall on East Saltonstall Street?
Dark evil seeds.
Yes.
Evil seeds.
Because of the seeds. Evil seeds of domination.
Yes.
Number 8. Who did the hospital workers see on the top floor of the Emperor home? Who might they?
But that's another cult, right? It's not the same cult.
I think it's a different. I mean, I don't think it's anything to do with Edward. But who might they have seen?
Cultists?
Yeah.
But that's the vague answer. I don't know actually that one. Was it even connected to the crime?
I mean, and Victor Ingram, he certainly wasn't in town at that point.
I don't think he would get his hands dirty either.
I mean, it might also be this thing of competing cults in Arkham. So the cult in the Emperor home, they're about to do their Nyarlathotep ritual when they see a Shub-Niggurath spawn burst on the street. and the guy who runs down and look, he's the guy with the birthmark, but he's actually from the Nyarlathotep cult. And he sees, oh, it's a Shub-Niggurath spawn burst. So
there might be competing cults here. I would say a competing cult.
Yeah, a competing cult.
And there could also be a whole plot line about, Edward's twin that really just didn't discover.
I don't think he has a twin, but I think it was a good suggestion, but I think
okay.
Ultimately was probably wrong. Number 9. What was Barclay Rutger up to? Let's now think, because...
Was his name mentioned?
Barclay was mentioned by the museum, at the museum, right?
Yeah.
He said something about... Or am I just making this up as I go along? Maybe I'm just making this up.
Barclay, I don't think that was... I don't remember that name being mentioned.
No, it was Bancroft. Okay, I have no idea. We haven't encountered...
No clue.
Barclay, perhaps it's the guy who was watching on the street, if it wasn't Edward.
Yeah.
Who knows?
We just haven't encountered him.
No, can't answer, unfortunately. We also have another difficult one, number 10. What was the name of the late-night graveyard visitor?
We never investigated the graveyard.
Perhaps we should have investigated the graveyard because it was right across from her lodgings.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why we would do that, but...
Was it Edward sort of peeking into her windows at night? It's just a guess. So I'm going to say no clue.
Yeah, no clue. Jesus, one more. Number 11. Why did the late night graveyard visitor visit at night? And what was he doing? Burying evil seeds? I mean, we don't know. So it's just a stupid guess. What is the word scrawled all over the Emperor home?
Yeah, can't spell that. Nyarlathotep.
Nyarlathotep. We can just say it.
Nyarlathotep. So why are they mentioning the Emperor home twice in this questionnaire?
I mean, does this cult
Is there a crossover here?
Are they worshipping both Nyarlathotep and Shub-Niggurath? Or is it some kind of confusion? I still think Nyarlathotep is like a red herring.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's hope so.
I mean, I don't think we can change.
But there's at least 3 answers here, maybe even 4. That we simply don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's see the judgment here.
So, okay. There is a point scoring system, but we're not going to use it because I hate points.
No, fuck points.
Fuck points. You heard it here. Probably not first, but you heard it here. So, answer number 1. The name of the woman who collapsed in the street is Martha Modine.
Correct.
Yes. The suspicious character that made a quick exit from the scene of the crime was Edward Hardwell.
It was Edward.
So it was just because witnesses are unreliable.
Yes.
That's a neat little twist, I think.
I like that one.
So the woman came by her injury because of the ritual extraction of the spawn of Shub-Niggurath.
So it was a ritual extraction.
It didn't burst. But I mean, ritual extraction, I'm not sure about all the surroundings of it, but it makes sense with regard, instead of them having to like survey her until it bursts.
Sure. We were on
to something, but we didn't quite get it.
I'm gonna give us 0.5.
It's a little bit correct.
It's a little bit correct.
The danger in the park is that trees that come alive.
Yeah, of course.
Of course. Or if you knew the name of the creature, a dark young. Yeah, dark youngs of Shub-Niggurath. But
I'm gonna give us that one. I'm gonna be nice here. I'm gonna give us that one.
So, what was stolen from the museum? A ritual bowl.
Yes.
Which is
grains, of course.
No.
No?
Just a ritual bowl. I think the grains was supplied probably by Victor, right? But not the dagger.
Okay.
And the ritual bowl is apparently a Kothotha birthing dish.
Birthing dish.
A Kothotha, which is nothing to do with Shub-Niggurath.
Well, how do you know that?
Because this is a different thing.
There's another beast.
Yeah, apparently. I
many
think
beasts,
so.
Many beasts abound in these lands here. I'm gonna give us that because we knew ritualistic. The bow was missing. I'm nice here, but
you're being very nice to yourself.
Yeah.
So, who is the out-of-town cultist of Shub-Niggurath?
Victor Ingram.
Yes, thank you.
Nice.
And why did the cat hiss?
Because of evil seeds.
It was sensing the seeds of Shub-Niggurath in Edward's basement.
So it is Shub-Niggurath seeds, but it's another demon bowl. Do you have to invoke 3 different demons for this to work?
I'm not quite sure. And this Kothotha birthing dish may also be related to Shub-Niggurath, but this is deep lore.
Yeah, okay.
We need to visit Pasquale again to get answers for this. Then, the hospital workers, who they saw on the top of the Emperor home, are members of the Silver Twilight.
Said competing cult, but I don't think that's.
I don't think. I'm not sure that Edward is a cult, but it was the. So, but I think what we know now is that the members of the Silver Twilight, for future cases, they are doing some ritualistic shit with Nyarlathotep.
But also, so they're connected to Nyarlathotep, but wouldn't it just be too easy in Arkham Investigator, the game, just to go visit the cult all the time, for any case?
Yeah, but I think a lot of the time the cult won't tell you anything, right? It'll just be. But there is a mole plant and you can go talk to him. Perhaps he would have been able to say, yes, the Silver Twilight was meeting there. But I don't think they had anything to do with Shub-Niggurath.
I don't think it's connected either.
No.
So I'm not going to give us point for that one.
Barclay Rodger, he was drinking with his friend on the unvisited isle.
Yeah, okay, so if we had gone there, okay, yeah.
Yeah, but okay, that seems like completely...
Yeah, but also if you had gotten that, would you have been following the leads then?
Yeah, and like, would you have been considered a good detective that I know the name of someone who drinks illegally on the unvisited isle?
Yes, so isn't that just following a red herring? The same with, so actually, okay.
Now comes the critique.
No, I'm not going to give the critique yet. Let's go past.
Then, the late night visitors to the graveyard was called Thomas Ilsley. We've never heard of him.
Okay. No, we don't know.
And he visited the graveyard because he suffers from insomnia and he was conducting research for a book.
Okay.
That's another complete side quest.
Why would you get points for side quests? That's my critique.
Well, yeah. Normally it's divided into sort of primary and secondary. But anyway. And Nyarlathotep is indeed the word that is scrawled.
Yes. So we got that one.
And then there's all sorts of game mechanics. We're not going to go into that. But there is something about you can have lost sanity during your operation. And so you create a score. I'm not going to go into that, but I'm going to say that Armitage, he visited 7 locations and then he solved the case. We probably visited twice that number.
Yeah, around that.
And the locations that Armitage visited in order to solve the case was Arkham Hospital.
Yes.
We went there.
Yeah.
Miskatonic Orn Library.
No.
We did not go there. That's where they were doing the mucus, where you could get information on that, I think.
Okay.
Because he was consulting books there. University Exhibit Museum,
We went
which
there.
you didn't need to visit
No.
in order to enter. Why did you go there, Armitage?
Yeah.
Weird. Pascali, he did visit his arch
He did
rival.
visit Pascali.
Okay. And he visited Herbert Corbett, the criminologist,
We did that.
and Rennie's boarding house,
We did that.
where Martha lived, and Edward Hartwell's house.
We did that.
Yeah. So we did all of
So
that.
he was able to solve it, with the only exception being the library,
Yeah.
and less clues than we had.
Yeah. And now we can read his solution.
Yes.
So this is how Armitage has reconstructed the
he
whole
deducted.
thing. According to Professor Armitage, which I must say I believe could be wrong.
Yes. I also wonder, I'm really curious to see how much the library helped him out.
Yeah.
Because that's the only one we didn't visit.
And of course he begins by saying,
Elementary.
arrogant fucker, in the end, a simple mystery. Back in Armitage's office, you feel the legwork of the week was far from simple. Garrison, reclining near the open window in a leather wing-back chair, gives you a look that implies he agrees with you. Garrison says, there was the question of the woman's identity to wrestle with, Henry. That seems like the most pertinent fact that we were missing from the start. Armitage nods. Indeed. That was forefront in my mind as well, Inspector. And once I had visited her room at Rennie's boarding house, out of the blue, I was able to put a name to our young lady.
How did
Miss
he know?
Martha Modine.
How did he know to visit that place?
Who knows? It's Henry Armitage. Garrison looks perplexed. What on earth led you up French Hill to the Rennie house?
Thank you.
Armitage grins. Alas, Inspector, so wrapped up were your officers in door-to-door solicitations over the identity of the young lady, they neglected her possessions. Her receipt from the boarding house clearly showed that she had intended to stay there for another month.
Oh, he did visit the hospital as well, yeah.
Yeah. This then led me to the fiend, Hartwell, and his lair. So clean and tidy. Garrison shrugs grudgingly. An admission that a focus on the surrounding streets was the wrong call, given the circumstances. Well, what happened to her then? Why did that villain Hartwell attack the woman he professed to love? That, Inspector, perhaps we will never fully comprehend. Mr. Edward Hartwell had a love greater than the one he professed to hold for Martha. There was a special bond between the two, but Edward was held thrall to dark powers beyond our world. The rantings he uttered upon his arrest were testament to that. His love for the unspeakable evil of Shub-Niggurath outweighed even his fondness for the lovely Miss Modine. He must have been planning it for some time, slipping one of those damnable seeds into Martha's food, where it wriggled its ray into her chest cavity, there to grow and feed on her like a parasite. Martha was the unknowing host to this evil inside her. I must admit, that weasel, Pasquale, was of some use here, and it confirmed what I had learned from reading Ibon in the library. A lingering memory of his feelings for Martha must have prompted Edward, in remorse, to redress her and lay her out to expire rather than complete the prescribed sacrifice.
Aha! How did he...
But we heard that she collapsed So apparently she did not collapse. She was just lying in the street.
She was brought into the street.
So
she was dressed after the ritual. She was dressed and brought into the street.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty clever. I think that's pretty clever, and it's a little bit like the birthmark that moved around the face. That it was also this was relying on just random witnesses, right?
And that was exactly what Jeden was alluding to earlier, actually.
Yeah.
That it was a lover who would, a person close to her that would dress her before putting her out in the street.
Yeah. So that is actually where something ill shined through his evil facade. Okay. It is likely that the secretions of the spawn, that was the clue we did not follow, that foul mucus stayed the blood flow for a short time and dulled the pain. As the influence of the spawn waned after its removal, it is clear Martha awoke and was able to stagger back to the street to try and find help. So he conducts the ritual. We don't exactly know where.
Was it in the ritualist? Was it in the Emperor house?
No.
I don't think so either.
I think it must have been in the park, probably.
Not a good place to do it.
Yeah, because that's where the Shub-Niggurath dark young spawn.
What about his apartment?
But she wouldn't walk that long.
It's not that far.
I mean, the park is where the Shub-Niggurath trees are.
But at 7 in the evening?
Would you be out after 7 in the evening?
Not in Arkham.
Not in Arkham, right? Not with those going on. No, I think that's what he did. And so he took her to the park for a bit of a, romantic assignation, cut her chest open, pulled out the spawn, and then kind of felt a bit of regret, dressed her and left her.
Left her in the park.
And then she woke up, staggered out into the street and collapsed. And he mustn't have been far off because he returned to look at her and the people that was gathering.
Which is perverse.
I mean, I don't think it speaks too much in Edward's defense that he put that blouse back on her.
No, it's a small gesture, I would say.
Yeah, it's good. It doesn't redeem you, Edward.
No.
Garrison interjects.
Tatsevitra agrees with me. In the park, it's not. I don't think it's in the park.
I think it's in the park.
Wouldn't you do a ritual in private?
It was not a ritual. It was just cutting someone's chest open and taking out a demon spawn.
Casually.
I would do that in parks all the time. I mean, where should you do it?
But maybe, that's what I'm saying. Tatsevitra in his basement, or actually at the Emperor house. But
because that was the Silver Twilight.
Silver Twilight, yeah. Okay, so maybe it says.
Maybe it says. Let's see. Garrison interjects suddenly. Why the attack in the park then? Surely he was taking a risk in such a public place.
Maybe we should just read the.
Yeah. We just asking all these questions and yeah. Armitage pauses, then knowingly responds. It would seem the ritual needed to be overseen by a watcher, a dark young, Shub-Niggurath's blasphemous child. Where could one of these evil creatures hide in Arkham? But in a heavily wooded park.
Then you would have to know Cthulhu lore.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah.
He needed to conduct the ritual outside. Risk was there in the overgrown part of Uptown Park. With a slice and a snap of bones, he was able to free the unholy spawn and store it in the Kothotha birthing dish that was taken from the museum. That is, until he could transfer it to more secure bindings and hand it off to his friend, Victor Ingram. It is a shame that you missed him, Inspector. Garrison nods at the suitcase next to Armitage's desk, the twinkle back in his eye. Aye, a shame. Seems like you and I have a trip to make in the morning. Unfinished business.
Okay. So, you know what? I would actually say we got pretty darn close.
We got pretty darn close. We weren't as fast as Armitage.
No, that's true. But on all the important points, we got it right. And that's why I think it's a little bit a shame that the questions aren't divided as they are in Sherlock Holmes, because I do believe that most of the last questions that we actually didn't get right were all red herrings, or not red herrings, but
the subplots,
but not really closely pertaining to this case.
They're basically, if you make a wrong move in the game, you obtain some information that will give you some points. So it's very mechanical in that sense. And I mean, I think, again, we also don't count points. It doesn't matter. But I think the interesting thing is to try to solve the case.
Yeah.
And then, of course, if there is like a big subplot, that can happen. I have experience, I remember, in one of the early Sherlock Holmes cases I was playing, where I thought that, we discovered a lot and we're ready to answer questions. And then it turned out that the only questions we could answer was the subplot.
Yeah.
So we've been chasing the subplot the whole evening. We had absolutely no clue what the main story was about.
It's also if you are counting points, then it's good to reward maybe the player for saying, hey, at least you found out.
It's a catch-up mechanism, basically.
No, but I think we did really well.
Absolutely.
I'm going to pat ourselves on the back and say, good job, Arkham investigators.
And I'll also say, as Tatsuritsu says, this is just silly and you know it. I agree, it is a little silly, but I think actually this case was a lot less silly than I had feared.
I think the writing, the finding of the clues, our engagement with the game, the lore, everything was really nice. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I don't think, yes, there was the odd sub-Niggurath, Dark One, whatever, and ritualistic offering bowls and stuff like that. But that's,
Look, as we discussed in the beginning, right? This whole don't show the monsters thing. And this game actually did that.
Yeah, exactly.
It alluded to some weird names, and it's only because that, you have read a Lovecraft story or two that Shub-Niggurath and Nyarlathotep or something will mean anything to you. If you hadn't read those stories, they would just be weird names.
Yeah. And it wasn't heavily relying on the Cthulhu lore.
No.
I think the only thing that required actual lore to answer was the thing about the park.
Yeah, because if you know the Cthulhu lore, you'll know that Shub-Niggurath is the dark young of the woods, or the goat with 1,000 young, dark young of the woods.
And you would know that you would have to have him oversee the ritual.
I don't think that anyone could know that. I think that's something that he just made up. But you would know that the reason for being close to the park had to do with Shub-Niggurath. So you would be able to link Shub-Niggurath to trees. But, I mean, she still talked about the trees being alive. So even if you didn't know, I think you would still have the idea that the ritual had some kind of connection to nature.
Yeah. There was actually... Was there a way of knowing... Well, if you understood the clue with the park, you might also have understood that you would have to carve out the spawn. Would you understand that without knowing?
I think
is that deduction or
it looked like that we were told there was an incision that looked like a knife, and we found a dagger.
Yeah, with blood on it. Yeah, so
with blood on it. So we should probably just have gone with that. But it just we had gone into that chest burster story. And become enamored with that instead, right?
Yeah. But I think, with all that said, I think we did pretty good. And I think up until the end, the explanation from, what is his name?
Henry Armitage.
The explanation from Henry Armitage was a bit gratuitous and a bit Cthulhu, over the top, Cthulhu-esque. But discovering the crime and learning about the crime and deducting the clues. That wasn't supernatural.
And there were people, that had emotions and psychologies. Yeah. It feels like it feels to me like a sort of kind of light version of Sherlock Holmes Consultant Detective.
That's basically what it is. This is Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective for beginners.
Yeah. It's a way to engage with the system, and if you are a big Cthulhu buff, you'll probably enjoy this a lot because you can go deep on lore.
You probably do a little bit better.
Yes, and I've also read that some cases are more dependent on Cthulhu lore than others. So in some cases, while I think they are meant to be played by anyone, they'll reward you a little extra if you know the lore.
But it's so hard to talk about this game without mentioning Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective.
I mean, it is a reskinning.
It's a reskinning. And I think it's much more linear in the sense that you get more or less, I would say, heavily leaning on the concrete side on clues. It's very the clues are very heavy-handed compared to the Sherlock Holmes game.
But I don't think it was heavy-handed actually in a bad way.
No.
I think it was obvious.
But just compare it. If you compare it.
Yeah, and I think in Sherlock Holmes many people will experience getting stuck, and here we never got stuck.
No.
There was always something more to investigate. So yeah, I think it's sort of a light, fun way to play, and of course, a lot of it hinges on, can you really accept this Lovecraftian universe? And to people who are not into Lovecraft, I would definitely recommend playing Sherlock Holmes instead, because,
one thing that bothers me is like there's a ritual going on in the park, and at the same night there's a ritual going on up in the abandoned building next to it, and there's a ritual on the island, and there's a blah, 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 blah. And so it's
they're
like
just drinking on the island.
but it just feels like you stumble over rituals in this town, and that's a little bit much. It's like, it's like Nightmare Before Christmas, where everyone is ready for Halloween all the time,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it is like that. But I think that I came into it with some skepsis, thinking that, maybe this was just over-the-top pulpy Cthulhu with like tentacles coming out of every little crevice.
No, it's fine. I think.
I think it's actually pretty toned down, and I was really surprised. And I think we did a good job, but I also think the game did a really good job.
Yeah. No, I definitely recommend it to anyone who is want an entry-level detective game.
Yeah, I mean, and the whole system is just brilliant. The whole system from...
I wish there were more games made of this formula, because I love it. I love the reading all the clues and deducting all the different hints and trails of thought.
I mean, there are many variations. There are the whole detective series of games. There's also even another Bureau of Investigation, which is also a Cthulhu-inspired game in the same vein. I think there are many, but in my experience, many of the later detective games, they are more scripted, which some people like because it gives you a stronger sense of story and drama, and more consequences. Like you'll have stats, you can be injured, and there is more an element of time and racing against time. But I always come back to the Sherlock Holmes system because I love this idea that it's a completely flat storytelling structure, and it shouldn't work. It shouldn't be possible that you say, here are 30 different paragraphs that you can read in any order, and however you read them, you'll string together not just a story, but clues for a mystery that you're going to solve.
And also you're going to string together your own story.
Yeah.
Because we had our own completely personal experience with this unique story.
Yes.
And we made it our own.
Yeah.
And we even though we weren't completely right with everything, we got it sort of right, and we got it right in our own way.
And as I said, like, I don't trust all of Armitage's explanation.
No, who knows if he's gotten it wrong a few times here and there.
He's getting old, isn't he?
Yeah, we might need to sort of usurp him.
Yeah.
No, but I think I had a great time with it, and I think it was perfect for us to be able to finish it in, what was it, like 4 hours or so?
Yeah.
Or maybe 3.5 if you...
We had a long intro.
Yeah. A lot of lore was lore drop at the beginning here.
Yeah. Front-loading lore.
Yeah. So I think it's an amazing game, actually, especially if you are wanting to dip your toes in investigative gaming. And
this is just one of the cases. So in case you feel that we spoiled everything, there are 7 more cases out there.
Yeah, well, cool.
So there's really a lot to dig into.
Any fan-made scenarios?
There are also a couple of fan-made scenarios.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think my only regret is that basically they upgraded the game from a print and play to a published edition, because it seems that the published edition, I mean, it also had errors, right, that weren't there in the print and play edition.
Well, to be fair, so did the French translation or the English translation of the French revamp of Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
So it's a staple in these games, apparently.
Yeah, and I mean, there are also a lot of references, and if you end up writing U3 instead of U4, it can mess up a whole thing.
But also then you could, in some cases, you might actually realize your mistake and go back.
Yeah, and I think in some cases it's also, again, minor things that doesn't matter. Had we seen a note or not, maybe it wouldn't have mattered. Maybe it would have actually mattered because it was signed by V, and that's how we discovered the whole plot.
Yeah, yeah.
So it actually did matter.
But also at the same time, I think the way we played this, without the timer, without the point scoring system, not worrying about that, I think in general is a good way to approach these games.
Do that. I mean,
approach them more as like an experience.
Experiencing a story, and what these games give you is, of course, that you put together your own story, and at some point the game tells you you're right or it tells you are wrong. But even when it tells you are wrong, you still kind of loaded something into. We had all these discussions about the nature of the relationship between Edward and Martha, for example, which the game can never take away from you.
Yeah. And also just reading the final, what is it called, Armitage?
His solution there.
His solution is great fun.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just fun to be proven right, and it's fun to be given the actual story also.
Yeah.
So it's just a good payoff at the end of the game.
Yeah.
All right.
So, yeah, this was our venture into detective games. I'd love to play more detective games.
Definitely.
And it's great if we can find some that we can actually do in a single sitting.
Yes. I think we should just try to search for more of these games because it was great fun.
Yeah, so if anyone out there has any suggestions for detective games that fit the format, bring them on, and we'll try to pick them up and play them.
So, hope you enjoyed it, everyone.
Yes, and also, I mean, do give it a deep dive into some of all the lore we talked about in the beginning. Go try to find out these weird old game books from the 30s. Highly recommend it. It's going to blow your mind what people did 100 years ago in the detective game genre.
And with that, all that's left
to say is stop winning,
stop losing,
stay hopeless. Thank you and good night.